Hello and welcome to the Humanity, where we do the things with the stuff for the people. I am Matt.
And I'm Tommy. And tonight we're welcoming Matt back to the show after his week off. Um, I'd asked you right now how your week was, but that's kind of what the show is going to be. So I guess we can save that part. Um,
What are you
I
drinking?
guess. Well, tonight I'm actually starting off a little non-alcoholic because our grocery store started selling apple cider. So
Ooh,
starting with that tonight, then I'll move on to beer, and I will keep you posted as I go. So. Hmm.
I am having uh, Heyman's same gin as last week, or no, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. I was gonna
Heyman's
say
gin is
last week they let you have gin. Sweet.
yeah, no, but no, I'll tell you other stuff in a minute.
Yeah.
So I'm having that in some carbonated lemon water. It's just carbonated
Mm.
water with a slice of lemon squeezed into it
Ooh.
and gin. It's better with lime, but
That sounds pleasant.
Um,
I
our
like that.
limes were all like pockmarked and rotten, so lemon it is.
There you go. Also noticed tonight. Figured with the NFL season coming up, I'd sport my at least Bengals related T-shirt. And without discussing this beforehand, Matt was apparently thinking the same thing. So
Yep.
same thing happened. Well, same type of thing happened last week when it was me and your wife Erin. Like
Oh
we
yeah.
both wore microbrewery T-shirts. Just like she
Well,
had her
she.
fretboard shirt, I was wearing my Mad Tree
Yeah.
shirt. So apparently, I have some kind of connection with you and your family. I mean, I know I know me and your son, we both like video games and thinking that normal people are weird. Um,
Yep.
I'm,
Yep.
I'm sure I have something in common with Elise as well, but I haven't seen her in a while. So
Oh, she's so bossy. It's
mm,
like part of her personality and part of her kind of her blend of autism.
mm, yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
cute until it's not.
Well, that's me. I'm cute until I'm not as well. So
That's what your ex said.
accurate. Quasi. Um, but yeah,
Well, yeah, until you had your own opinions. So,
that's when I was not. But
mm,
yeah, the less said about that, the better, probably. But anyway, so
sorry I brought it up then.
it's quite all right. I mean, it's good for me to talk about, just maybe not here. Uh, but speaking
Fair
of
enough.
things that are good to talk about, see how I segue in like a pro.
Like a
Um,
pro.
so good, I just completely lost my train of thought.
Speaking
Professional.
of segues,
So remember, folks, I'm not a real YouTuber. I just play one on YouTube. So speaking of, I guess now maybe would be the time to ask how was your week, Matt?
uh, it was really interesting. Excuse
Mm,
me. It was how was it? Well, it was pretty rough, and then I was like, oh, this is too rough. Like this is really rough. I need to get help. And then so I went and saw the nurse practitioner at my regular doctor, and she was like, "Well, since you wanted to get in ASAP to get help, she's like, I can't really mess with your medicine. Um, you need to see a psychiatrist at this point because I take an antidepressant." And she's like, "I'm not qualified to mess with your medicine if you're feeling this way." And was what she was saying, which I really appreciated. Um,
mhm,
and she kind of recommended, but it could only be my decision. She said
mm,
she said the other options would be to wait to get in to see a psychiatrist, or if I think I need something before then the best option is to go down to the ER. And she said specifically the psych ER, and recommended two hospitals in town, Christ Hospital and Good Sam. Um, I guess because they have really good programs for um, people who are having extreme problems but aren't violent. Um, they have programs for that too. And the one at Christ Hospital where I was called double lockdown. That's what they called it internally.
Oh wow. Hmm.
I
Cool.
was in single lockdown, um, where I was allowed to see the sun outside of my room, but it couldn't be outside or off the floor I was on. So I went down, jumping back a little bit in the story. I went back. No, I didn't go back. I'm jumping back, and in that story, I went down to UC Hospital's ER, and I think that was no. The first doctor recommended I think Christ Hospital or UC. So I went to UC Emergency. I like them. That's where I was air cared for my DUI, like around 2000.
Memories.
Yep. And I'm like, I survived, so they're not bad. But it's just really hard to find the psych ER because apparently hardly anyone goes voluntarily.
Makes sense.
So, like, everybody knows where it is who needs to know, more or less. Like the cops and the ambulance drivers all know where it is. And so I went in, and it immediately felt like a rural Russian hospital. Where they probably think it's really nice. In countryside Russia, but it was just really stripped down. Everything was like hosed down clean. Like all the chair cushions were just like encased in vinyl and nothing throwable, basically.
Yeah.
And so I started the check-in process, and you can't take anything personal back, even just to get evaluated, to see if you need to stay or not, because basically anything that isn't your clothes can be used as a weapon. So couldn't take anything back, and I was super nervous. I was very anxious and very depressed when I got checked in, and so saying I couldn't have anything fidgety or any of my normal stuff was super uncomfortable. And so I went through the check-in process, and I saw the intake psychiatrist and one of the social workers, and I'm pretty sure the psychiatrist was also autistic. She was saying very direct things that sounded rude. And I'm like, lady, I feel like shit. Don't be mean to me. So she was running through like the asking questions and trying to get a feel for my background and what kind of losses have I experienced. So because I didn't come in I didn't come in drunk or ODing or something. So they have to get more of the details initially. As I said, my dad died 2 years ago, and I think I kind of dealt with it, but I've been in denial for like 2 years. And I think that's related to being autistic, where my brain just didn't know what to do with certain parts of it, so it just kind of sat on it. And I also, they said, what about community? And I said, well, a few years ago, I lost like a couple hundred acquaintances through my, church prayer group I was involved in, and other church people. I was like, they kind of want nothing to do with me now, and I'm sad about that, because I wish they didn't have a problem with me now. And she goes, wait. I think she's also she's from Southeast Asia somewhere. I don't think Vietnam. I want to say Cambodia or Laos or something like that. Maybe Singapore.
Okay.
And so she had an accent. I'm not going to do it because it'll be racist. Because honestly, she sounded racist. Lady, your accent is like so stereotypical. I think you're bad for other Asian people. No, but she goes, I don't want to cuss, So, and I said, I don't care, because she was about to say, like, who fucking cares? Like they don't like you, so like, why do you care if you're friends anymore? Was kind of where she was going.
Hmm.
Like, why would you want to be friends with people who don't like you? And so I was kind of like, well, yeah. And so she didn't really get it. So that's when I figured that she's probably autistic, because that's what, like, psychiatrists are usually like real cut and dry.
Mm-hmm.
She was making the social worker nervous. It looked like, because she was. I appreciated how honest the psychiatrist was and how direct. It's just
Yeah.
several times she said something. I'm like, I think, should I be offended? And
Like, I feel like I should be, but I don't know.
and then she
Yeah.
clarified. It was kind of like Jamal Javanji, if you remember him. How he would say something, you're like, that was bad shit. Tell me more. And
Yeah.
then he'd explain. You're like, oh, just no one would say it like that. And that's what it was. So I got checked in there for about 8 hours. You have to put on your mental hospital scrubs and change out of your regular clothes. If you're a female or somebody wearing a bra, you can't wear that, because you can use it to choke people, or maybe as a slingshot if you're like real creative.
Ooh.
Like you can hang yourself with a bra, so that's not allowed. As it shouldn't be. It just sucks for women who are used to wearing one.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of that and things like that, there's something I meant to do at the top of the show. Just warning for people out there watching, we probably will be going into some maybe like potentially pretty heavy topics. So
yeah,
blanket trigger warning, I guess, for
I'll try not to.
Yeah,
I'll try not to dwell on the self harm. It was, I wasn't. The reason why I went was because I was concerned. I should have said this earlier. It was because I had gotten to the point where it was as far as I'd been in the past with mental health and depression. And with my divorce and stuff, and my dad's death, I got pretty far, and I felt like I was there, but I wasn't done yet. And I'm like, I don't know what comes next. I'm gonna develop like a cannabis abuse situation, or like a drinking problem to cope or something, and then I don't know what.
Yeah.
And I knew I wasn't. I didn't know if I should be in the ER, in like the mental health ER. And so I'm like, I should go see.
Yeah. If that's even a thought. Yeah.
Like if you don't know the answer to that question, like, I knew I wanted the answer to be that I didn't need to be there.
Yeah. But answers ain't always what you want them. So so like we said, trigger warning for folks probably going into some heavier topics tonight. So if it makes sense for you to like tune out, hey, that's cool.
It ends up being helpful pretty quick.
Yeah, but I was say, but as will also be a theme for tonight, take care of yourself. You know?
Yes.
So, but yes, continue.
So I got checked in there, and they're like, you can find a bed, or you can, because there weren't assigned beds really. You just like, they let you pick one that was free, and then that was yours. And they would kick people out of it if they tried to, take it when you were up or something.
Yeah. Now, were these like in bedrooms, or was it like just a large room with a bunch of beds? Or
no, anybody who's ever seen the inside of a jail. I had not, but I had heard the description from my sister, because she works for Warren County Jail here in Ohio. And the jail is not prison; it's where you're held before you go where you're going to go, right. Either released or to court. And then depending on what court decides, you go to prison. Or not.
Right.
So there was like a central office area, like the It was shaped like a horseshoe. There was like a horseshoe-shaped hallway around the center, like pod area where the staff was in. And they had windows all around, not made of glass. Uh, and there was rooms on one side that had doors on them, and that's for people who were excessively belligerent and needed to be strapped down to protect either themselves uh, or the staff there. Um, that being the case, the staff was really chill.
Hmm.
Like
I guess it'd almost
everything,
have to be. Yeah.
yeah, everything there was an old hat. Staff was LGBTQ friendly. Um, uh, it appeared, and which is good because there's a lot of people from that community that end up needing uh, some special help because of society rejecting them. Um, and then the other side, there was just like cubbies with curtains and one or two beds in each cubby. Um, it, but like I was there starting around rush hour, and I ended up being there for about 8 hours. I tried to get some rest after a bit. Uh, I could have had medication if I wanted to help me sleep, but uh, the option was Ativan, and I don't. Ativan's basically Valium.
Mm.
It's like a shorter acting form of Valium, and it can be addictive. So I didn't want to. I didn't want to do that.
Right.
But they were giving it out like candy because a lot of those people in there were detoxing from meth. Um, and if you're going through withdrawal, you can't sleep. And if it's still in your system, uh, then you've been up for a few days. That can be really, really bad for your body. So I was just sitting and chilling and sat in the little TV area, and they had AMC on. Um, one movie was ending, and it's weird how clear this is. As soon as I was in there and I had a seat, like in the TV area, I felt like I could relax. I felt like my anxiety could, because it just felt safe in there. Like I was taken care of. Everybody was chill, except for the people yelling at things.
Yeah.
We weren't sure if they're
You'll get
one lady. We're not sure if she was yelling at the staff or people in her head. It seemed to kind of go back and forth.
Yeah.
And then she calmed down. All right, now I'm gonna laugh at things and make jokes about things several times that are gonna sound to people listening maybe uh, like a rude or uncaring thing to do. But the truth is, when I was in there, it was funny, and it was funny to several people, and it's finding the humor in a situation you never wanted to be in kind of changes that situation into a positive.
Yeah.
And that's super helpful. So we're sitting there watching TV, and Man on Fire comes on, and I've seen it, and I really like that movie. It's with Denzel Washington, and there's actually a character arc to the main characters.
Yeah.
It's very good. But it's also super violent. They're just letting us watch it. They can come in, and they're like, look at the staff comes in, looks at the TV, and they're totally aware of what's on. And but if anybody was violent in there, they would have been strapped down. So that felt cool that they trusted us watching that. Then Walking Dead came on, and I was like, that's a bit much. I'm going to go try to sleep. Staff was really cool there. The one girl with pink hair, who seemed to be gay. I'm not sure, but just she seemed to have the appearance. She's like, "You want a sandwich or some chips or anything?" I'm like, "I'll take a sandwich." And so she brought me two, and she's like, "I'm not gonna lie, they're not good. They're not great." She's like, "The trick is condiments," and she's like, "I brought you extra."
Nice.
She's right; they were good with condiments, like mayonnaise and mustard on them. It was just a bun with like lunch meat on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I met a
So was
guy
this
there. Oh, so
this
yeah,
was
go
at
ahead.
this was at UC
This
still?
is still at UC
Okay.
Hospital where they were
Okay.
trying. They were full upstairs. No openings in their program. So they're trying to get me into either Good Sam or Christ Hospital.
Hmm.
Uh, I ended up going to Christ Hospital. Got there about 3 in the morning. Um, After like sort of sleeping for an hour. I was more like laying down and just not trying to be awake.
Mm, yeah.
um, uh, so I ended up going to Christ Hospital, and they have to take you there in a stretcher, because they put you in the ambulance and everything.
Hmm.
Um, and it was a little weird. They left my seatbelts on when they're like pushing me around the hospital because they don't know for sure
Mm,
what I'm gonna do. So that
hmm.
was kind of weird. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh, but so I was asleep for like only a handful of hours. They come in like 7:30 or something to get my vitals, and I was like, I'm having flashbacks to after Aaron, had delivery at Christ Hospital.
Ah.
They come in to get the baby's vitals like every fucking half an hour or something.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Like we got this little pull-out bed here for the father to sleep on, and the mother sleeps in the hospital bed. But we'll be in every half an hour, and we're not gonna be quiet about it.
Good luck. No. Yeah. Same way. Yeah. At least when I was also at Christ Hospital when I had cancer, but yeah, a couple times I stayed in the hospital. I guess I was there 3 times. They only came in once every hour instead of every half hour, so it wasn't as bad.
Well, I think it was okay. I don't remember how much it was. Might have been an hour, but
Yeah.
it felt like every half hour.
Yeah. They're like,
First day,
now get some sleep.
yeah, the first day was rough because I was allowed to keep my T-shirt that I came in with and wear
Hmm.
that. Um, they, I think they prefer that you wear a scrub if possible. Um, they're not really scrubs. They're like prison scrubs, basically.
Mm.
A lot of the accoutrements in there was from the jail catalog.
Ah,
Uh, like the
fancy.
shower had a push button thing on it. It would like run for like 30 seconds, and if you didn't hit it again before the end of 30 seconds, it would shut off.
Hmm.
Um, the faucet was similar, but you had to wait for it to turn off before you turn it back on again, and that only lasted like 15 seconds, so that was a little annoying.
Mm. Yeah.
Toilet seat had no seat on it; it was just porcelain,
Mm.
which felt gross. Uh, so I put toilet paper down every time because it would have been super cold also.
Yeah, that too. Mm.
Yeah.
That's not good.
So that was all like really foreign for most of the first day.
Hmm.
Um, the trash bags were all paper. It was all paper bags because plastic you can choke people with and all that.
Yeah.
Um, so it felt very safe there.
Yeah,
uh,
that's good.
yeah, there are cameras everywhere. They checked rooms every 15 minutes. No joke. Um, and something that was kind of annoying, I started to get used to it by the end of the second day, was when you went to sleep, you either had to leave your door open a little bit um, so they could peek in every 15 minutes, or um, there was also like a peephole in the door that was facing inward so they could look in from the hallway. But you had to have one of your lights on,
Yeah. Yeah.
like either the bathroom light or there was like a lower wattage bulb just inside the door.
Mm.
Um, and then you could close your door at night. So the staff there was awesome,
Mm.
and they really helped like create an atmosphere of just kind and caring. And and they just talked to you like you were regular people because you were.
Mm,
And they all understood
good.
that like everyone is one event away from being in there, like one thing beyond what your brain can handle. Um,
Yeah.
and you come in there to get it fixed, and it's
Yeah.
they just treated it like you were like it was any other kind of hospital visit. There were extra precautions, of course, because
Oh, right.
of certain situations.
Well, yeah.
Um,
I mean, you get that with. I mean, speaking of like being there for like giving birth, and then me being there when I had cancer, and like the whole variety of like it's a different experience. Like no matter what you're there for, there
yeah,
are different measures and precautions taken, and yeah.
the PCAs were awesome. The
Mm.
what do you call
Yeah.
those?
Yeah.
Personal
PCAs.
care
Yeah.
assistant or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that's one thing I always said about like my time like with Christ Hospital, and still whether it was at the hospital, just all my doctor's appointments, all the nurses, like everyone there, like in with rare like occasion, as in like I can think of like maybe two people I came across, all like the probably dozens, if not hundreds of people I've interacted like with like I said, with just a couple exceptions, like everyone there is just awesome. So I
Yeah,
highly recommend Christ Hospital for anyone in the area.
yeah. The food is actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I highly recommend the chicken tenders. You got to get barbecue sauce or ketchup though, because they're a little. They're not enough by themselves.
Yeah. What I appreciate, I remember when I was staying there, like the first meal I ordered, I just got like a spinach side salad, and it came with what looked like just an entire like ice cream scoop of bacon bits on it.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
So
the goal is definitely to get calories in you there.
oh yeah, yeah.
And
But
keep you happy.
yeah. But speaking of getting things in me, I'm switching to beer now at the Mad Tree Search. It's one of their
Which
like
number is that?
number 14. It's
Is that
West
the
Coast.
one they have right now
Yeah,
on
I
tap
just got it at
there?
the store a few days ago.
Have you had it yet?
Yeah. Well, at the brewery, I had this one. It's a West Coast style IPA. So it's IPA, but the yeast in it is a German lager yeast. So it should be a
Oh,
lager, but not an ale for those who know the difference.
you know
But
what? If that's the one they have on tap, when it was on tap, it tasted um, very fuggly. Like it had fuggle hops in it.
let's see. This one says the hops. Um, Citra and Chinook. Hmm. I mean, the Chinook
Huh.
probably has some in common with the Fuggles, because the Fuggles is a little earthier, and
Okay, yeah,
the Chinook have more than that. Like now, the Citra definitely more citrusy, as the
yeah,
name would
because
imply.
it's
Yeah.
pretty. There's
Mm,
like a resiny bitterness to it that is less, and
mm,
it was more earthy
yeah.
than
Mm,
the Citra.
yeah. No, you definitely like the lager funk from the yeast is definitely more apparent, like in the on the nose, if it were, than in the actual taste of it. Hmm. But yeah, tasty. So they did not have that at the hospital when I was there, unfortunately.
No.
But
Um, yeah. So first day, I napped a little bit through some of the groups, which I probably needed to do. There was a guy there, one of the therapists. My
mm,
first day, and this is the guy I got irritated with, and I think they pegged me for anger problems, which isn't
mm,
totally wrong, but because they
yeah,
pulled me and a few other people aside for like a special like anger focused group, um, and so yeah, the first day they kind of hassle you a little bit about the morning groups the first day you're there because they're like trying to kind of aggressively encourage you to take part.
yeah,
Um, because if you don't take part in the groups, then they can't get enough feedback from the therapy staff to know if it's time for you to leave or not. Um,
mm,
so if you avoid groups, it will probably prolong your stay.
yeah,
And everybody who goes there is initially on an involuntary stay, meaning you're not allowed to leave. Um,
Mm-hmm.
then they switch you over to a voluntary stay if either they can, usually if they can tell that you want to be there, then they'll change it to a voluntary stay. But if you don't want to be there, they'll leave it on involuntary until they're uh, sure that you don't want to be there because you don't need it.
Yeah,
uh,
makes sense.
yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
But pretty much if you're there, it's because you or somebody else who knows decided you do. Somebody else with authority. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's this very beardy guy. The guy who came in was like groups and stuff, and I, pops his head in, got a big old fuck off beard, like halfway down his torso,
Nice.
and
I'm jealous.
I was like, it's like, fuck off with your awesome beard is what happened in my head. I didn't say it. I was like, dude, I got here at 3 a.m. It's like I just want to sleep some more. And he's like, yeah, but the groups are really good, and I was just like, no, but the groups were awesome, and it is just this like concentrated and distilled help. And it really is down to a science. And I was there for 3 3/4 days, and I felt like I was there for at least a week, like maybe even 2. It was like I used to think that like the camps that our church did were really awesome and helpful. It blew them out of the water. Like I didn't just come back excited. I came back better. And the difference was very noticeable coming back from this.
Nice.
I think there's community there, and it felt like a retreat and all that. But I came back with like actual strategies for being better.
Yeah, that's good.
And not just that church's language for the things, and met some cool people there. I can say first names because no one will know, and they're kind of generic names. I was good friends with Linda while we were there. She was like in her 50s. There was Milan, who was also awesome. Marcus and Alex were also amazing. And they're all like doing their own thing and trying to, they want to be better. All in there for different things. Anxiety and depression were part of it. And I kid you not, I think everyone in there was ADHD or autistic. In one of the group sessions, the therapist said, just out of curiosity, who here has ADHD? And we were all like, whoop, and put our hands up. And when I went into the UC hospital ER, and I said, I haven't been diagnosed. I said, but I'm sure I'm autistic. And she was like, this is one of those times where she was super direct and sounded rude. She's like, how do you know? And I was like, what? And she goes, most people who come in here don't know they're autistic. Meaning a lot of autistic people who come in, adults who don't know they're autistic, but like she can tell. And that undiagnosis or that being unaware led to severe mental health problems or substance abuse problems. To self-medicate. So everybody felt like my people in there. A lot of the staff were ADHD also. So they felt like my people. It was good natured. We watched Shawshank Redemption one night, had a movie night when we had our free time, and AMC again.
Nice. I got to deal with hospitals or something.
I think it's just good movies, different angles of life something that people can relate to.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
And The Walking Dead.
yeah. Well, we're not supposed. Depending on who's in there, depending what their problems are, we're not supposed to watch violence. It seems like that's the official rule. But if the people in there weren't prone to the kind of violence on the screen, then it was kind of like meh.
Mm.
As long as the whole movie wasn't violent.
Yeah.
There's that one scene in Shawshank Redemption where Brooks, one of the characters, Brooks, unalives himself after he's released,
Mm-hmm.
and when it was coming up, most of us hadn't seen it in a long time, and somebody goes, "Oh crap! Doesn't Brooks do something we're not supposed to watch?" And there was no staff out there like in the little desk area because we were being well behaved. They were further back. There's like a semicircle window desk thing that pops out so they can see down both hallways and the lobby.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's called the lobby, but it's just a communal space where the patients can hang out.
Mm-hmm.
And then right when that scene comes on, somebody came out to get Tina's blood sugar info, and so I was like, oh shoot, I don't, we don't want them to turn it off because it's just this one part, and like everybody who's in this room, like we all weighed in, like we're fine watching it, and so I got up and kind of moseyed like in front of the screen, like I was getting up and going for a little walk, and then when the nurse turned around and walked out, I went back to my seat, so I kind of ran interference for a second.
Nice.
There was a snack room that we weren't allowed in, obviously. But you can ask for snacks anytime because they wanted you to stay fed and happy. Because some of the people in there, because they had been so anxious or depressed, they weren't eating properly. So get the tasty foods into people was what they wanted to do.
Smart.
And we didn't want to all ask for something individually, but if somebody asked, or Wanda, who was an awesome PCA, she said it was her goal to make every one of us smile at least once a day. And she would overshoot that every day. She would often like walk through the room dancing. And she's like 60.
Awesome.
She's like, anybody want a snack? And so we just like all got up, and it was like a bunch of stray cats in jail scrubs. Shuffling over because we all had socks on, like the anti-slippy socks.
Yeah,
we didn't have shoes. So we all shuffle over, and half the people are wearing blankets because of the AC being so cold. And so we shuffle over, and then she's like, "What do you want?" And we're like, "What do you got?" She's like, "We got ice cream." She goes, "We have the gelato. We have like chips, pretzels, Nutri-Grain bars, like little miniature like Pepsis and stuff." The following day. One of the people asked for a snack, and so the nurse person came out and opened the door, and then while she's in there, like the rest of us in the lobby, like go and shuffle over there. I was like, that's why I made the joke about us being like a bunch of stray cats, because like we heard the food tin and we're just and she's like, we don't actually have all that much in here right now. And I said, yeah, we had a movie night last night. It got out of hand.
That's good times.
Yeah. So we made jokes here and there about stuff. And then then there was Tina who showed up, who was belligerent. We felt bad for her because clearly she didn't feel safe. She was, her fight or flight was always on fight. And the rest of it had just fucked off sometime in the past. And so
it flighted off. Yeah.
Yeah. And so she was just always had
Yeah.
an aggressive tone, super loud,
Mm.
a big woman. So she had a bellowy voice.
Mhm.
Also, this is when I realized I don't think any of the women were allowed to have bras because um, she's a big woman and she was just like Flapjack City, uh, and she was wearing like a waist long t-shirt because she was wearing two gowns. And I'm sure they had tried to show her that you could like tie them together so that they weren't just wearing like a front shawl and a back shawl because she was too big to like.
Yeah.
Um, and so that was kind of like a gamble. Like, so when's that gonna fall off? That was a little stressful. And then, and then like she was really aggressive. So we're like, oh no! Every time she's in a room, like she's in charge. She's in charge of your eardrums
Mm.
and your eyeballs, and like, and then something happened with her stuff between the ER and the sixth
Mm.
floor where we were. So all of her
Yeah.
stuff she came in with disappeared,
Mm.
and that was the last fucking straw.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. That'll do it.
and the person who told her was the dude social worker, and turns out she had something against dudes, like something against dudes, just ready to go. She had anger, ready to go. Like all I had to do was screw up once, and she was a little delusional, and it was one of those things where like it was a bad situation for her, and it was just taking over everyone else's situation.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
we were eating dinner one time, and it was me and Linda, and Tina was at our table, and one of her boobs slips out, like under her shirt,
The
right?
shirt just wasn't long enough.
Well, I had it rode up a little bit, and
Uh,
I was just like, Linda, like, do you see? And she's like, see. She's like trying not to think about it. Shut the hell up. It's just kind of like her tone, but it was like just like a foot out of her line of sight watching the TV, and that was like the best thing to take your attention, but it was still like you could still kind of see it. Like,
oh
how do
man.
you let somebody know nonchalantly? How do you indicate your boobs out to someone else? I don't know. Um,
Oh man.
yeah, so that was something. A couple of days later, or like the next morning, because she was there like half a day, and then the next late morning, apparently she had a warrant out. She had missed court or something,
Mm.
um, and I think she didn't go because she decided it was stupid. Um,
I mean, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. So they sent two female police officers to get her, which was smart because there would have been fisticuffs.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
We were in. We were in. This is one of the times where we lost it, or I kept it together and laughed like crazy inside, because we were talking in the anger meeting. We were all going around talking about our anger, and most people everybody's was kind of predictable, like anger in your shoulders or your neck, or you get a headache or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the way she said her name was Tina, and she said Tina. Name's Tina, like a Tina, like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of force behind it, like,
Mm-hmm.
and then she goes, I feel anger in my fists. And the girl sitting next to her just pulled her blanket up over her face and just started like heaving with laughter silently because we're like, oh my god, that's too perfect. Of course you do. Of course you feel it in your fists. Why didn't we see this coming? Why was this unexpected?
It's so perfect. Yeah.
And it was true. Because you saw, like, she would clench her fist and stuff sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I, I, when she lost her stuff and she was all upset, I tried to console her and stuff. And it's like, you'll be okay. And little did I know that that also meant that I was now going to hear every story she had to tell about everything that happened she didn't like that day.
Yep. Walked right into that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really hard. And we had to laugh about the things that made us uncomfortable, or they would just keep us anxious.
Yeah.
And I think that's true in general. Like, if you can find a way to find the humor in a bad situation or a stressful thing, it kind of redeems it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Humor can be a good coping thing. You don't want to get, you don't want to, if you can help it, you don't want to have humor be at somebody else's expense.
Yeah.
Yeah, groups were great. I learned a lot of stuff. I had my papers from it, and
Oh, cool.
I find myself, using some of the mechanisms for getting through situations, just kind of automatically. And so in that way, that was a little bit like a church camp thing, where you start using things automatically because it had been programmed into you. But this was actual stuff where, like, it was all helpful. Like, there wasn't a part of the programming that
Yeah.
that was the hair of the dog that bit you, basically.
Yeah.
If people don't know what that means, it means, like, if you have a hangover and you have a little bit more of what you drank the night before that gave you the hangover, you feel better. It really only works for alcoholics, from what I understand.
Yeah, I've never tried that myself, but
If you binge drink on a weekly basis or something, that's enough of alcohol abuse for it to work.
no. Good.
But it shouldn't work is the thing, and that's why, because the hangover is often from a sugar imbalance in your intestines from all the malt and stuff, and dehydration.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it was good stuff, and it made me want to. My time there was great, and made me want to kind of advocate for the Crossroads Man Camp people to have a secular psychologist come in and kind of like evaluate what they're doing, especially the prayer tent, like the mechanisms there. Because I remember doing stuff that, like, there's no way a psychologist or a counselor would sign off on it.
Right.
We thought it was good. People usually received it well, but long term, it was going to cause problems like shame or guilt or all that.
Yeah, for
They
real.
probably won't, but I want to make them say no.
Yeah, that was one of the things you started talking about as soon as you got out. Like, there's so many, like, prison metaphors and similarities or whatever with this, I guess. But yeah, but, like, first thing I wanted to point out was, like, I knew, like, you were, like, out and home and stuff, because, like, I don't know if this was right away, like, when you did this, but I just saw, like, you'd posted, like, on your Facebook page and the Humanity Facebook page, just saying, just flat out, hey, I just spent a few days in a mental hospital and not ashamed of it, and get help. So I was like, well, that's cool. So what? Because this is something that I think a lot of people, unfortunately, do feel like a lot of shame around. I mean, obviously there's a lot of
Mhm.
stigma around like mental health issues, and so I don't know. Was there anything particular that kind of made you feel like I need to say this right now in this way, or like like yeah, I guess just describe how that felt
Um,
or why that felt important to do or
there
whatever.
were a lot of several of the people I was in there with, who I hung out with, whose stories I knew. Like I was in groups with, and there were other people who didn't really participate in many groups at all, either because whatever reason. So I didn't know their story, uh, but everyone I knew had was in there because actually I don't know why one person was in there for sure. I heard part of his story. I don't know if that was the whole thing. But most people were in there because they had tried to unalive themselves, um, and were stopped, or it didn't work, or somebody knew they were going to. Like they said something that to a loved one, kind of like
Mm,
a veiled goodbye kind of thing,
yeah.
and so their loved one was like, "The hell you say?" And you know, called the police. That's what you should do, by the way. Anybody, if you think
Hmm.
someone if you are concerned they're suicidal and you're not there with them, um, call the police. Give them the address. The police are allowed to enter. Uh, they're allowed to. They'll announce themselves, and then they can enter whether they're let in or not. If you say somebody is going to hurt themselves, um, like if the person doesn't respond, uh, they'll try to get in. Um,
Mm,
and an ambulance will probably be on its way. The police should get there first because they can get in legally without having to be let in.
yeah.
Um, and both the police and ambulance crews have a protocol to follow. Sometimes the cops aren't great at it, but it's way better than nothing. Um,
Hmm. For sure.
uh, Depending on how adamant the person is on doing it, it may not be safe for you to go there yourself. That's kind of a um, something people have to feel out on their own. Like if you know the person won't hurt you, then you it will be up to you to make the decision if that's good for you to do or not. Um,
Yeah.
but every one of them who were stopped at whatever stage in the process didn't want to do it again. Um, like they
Yeah.
all
I hear
wanted
that.
to survive
Yeah, I
once
hear
they
that's
were
common.
stopped.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that's common like for people like if they have a failed attempt, they like sometimes like immediately regret it.
Yeah.
Like or sometimes they'll say like as they were doing like whatever it was they were doing, like they like immediately regretted it like right in the middle of it even. So,
So we got to make it more
yeah.
okay for people to get help
Hmm.
before that point. I mean,
Right.
it's great it didn't work, or they couldn't get to that point because somebody stopped them. But these were all amazing people, without question. Like all worth having around.
Mm.
Like more than worth having around. Like they were. I'm super glad I met all of them. Um, I still plan to be in touch with a couple of them. I'm going to go to try to go to one person's court date.
Nice.
One person, in addition to Tina, that got removed by the police, which is bullshit, by the way.
Yeah. You were telling me
It's,
about that.
it's bullshit that the hospital cooperates with it. And Wanda was
So, so what happened?
all
Like,
right. So one of the guys had a warrant he didn't know about because I looked up his info in public records later because I wanted to know one 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 thing I wanted to make sure was uh, would it be safe for me to hang out with him? Um, because one of the therapists made a comment like be very careful staying in contact with someone outside of the facility because she said you don't see everything we see, and it may not be safe to do so. And she told a story one time. There was a guy and a girl who met in there and started a relationship after they got out, and then she ended it, just because it wasn't, you know, wasn't going to work or whatever. And then he started stalking her, and it became a whole thing. Uh, so I wanted to kind of see his background, and just from what I can tell, when he was high, he was aggressive because meth can do that to people. Um,
Yeah.
and he didn't even remember. He didn't remember why he had the assault charge. He didn't remember missing a court date, and that was why the warrant was out. Um, and yeah, and he wanted to get better. He was like, "No, I'm not leaving until I'm better." Or he said, "I get into another like rehab treatment program to because he's like, I don't want to have to come back again." He's like, "I will if I need to, but I want to be better."
Right. That's good.
Yeah. So I thought it'd be cool to show up at his court date. Just kind of be there to support in the gallery.
Yeah. So you said the police came for him or something, or?
Yeah, they came in and sent a park ranger to pick him up, take him down to Hamilton County Justice to be processed and probably put in their jail down there. And I'm pretty sure the hospital can say no, it would be bad for the person's health to leave, but they don't. And if the person isn't currently a danger to themselves or others, then like I guess they feel like they don't have a good standing, or they don't want to. It's honestly probably they want to be on good terms with law enforcement, because if word gets out that if word were to get out that Christ Hospital hassles law enforcement, okay, then some asshole cops may be less than interested in taking people who need to be in their ER to their ER. Because they already do that sometimes with homeless people. They treat them like fucking criminals because they don't have a house, but just utter bullshit. How can it be illegal not to not have enough money for a house?
Yeah.
And you don't give them one. Like,
yeah.
What?
Like problem solved. Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Most people in prison have a mental health problem or a drug abuse problem. And
yeah, makes sense.
If they were in an inpatient program, like that place was locked down, you can't get out of there without it. There was like an air gap between the two doors to get out. If you got out the first one, then you got to convince the security guard behind the window to let you out the other one, or they just keep you in there until you calm down.
Right.
And it would just how quickly it would help people. It was so awesome to see people's faces change. Like there are people that you saw them come in, or you saw them like shortly after they came in, and they looked rough, like puffy faced, just like having like just the worst time of life and time in their life. And 24 hours later, you could already see a change. And just being in a safe environment where people treated you like a person and just were automatically kind and encouraging. Not over the top, just like, I'm going to be this way because you deserve it. That kind of angle.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome stuff. I recommend anybody get help in whatever form. And if you're not sure what kind of help you need, if it feels like an emergency, like you can't wait to see a doctor, then you go to an ER. and
Mm-hmm.
tell them what your deal is. And if you are concerned you're going to hurt yourself, tell them that, and they'll just admit you. Um, and if they give you a problem, if they're if it seems like you're not getting the enthusiasm from the medical staff to help you, just if it's true, tell them like you don't know if you're going to hurt yourself. That works too. Uh, Also, if you just say I want to speak to I want to speak to psych, and I think I need to be admitted, that also works. Otherwise, see an actual counselor. Um,
Mm-hmm.
don't talk to your pastor about mental health stuff. Talk to somebody who fucking has a clue.
Right. Or at least, even if you do have a pastor who is relatively competent, but they still have their parameters or their hedges,
Yeah,
or
it's better than
yeah.
nothing, but
Mhm.
wouldn't you want to have better than that?
Yeah. Yeah. Like actually better and good. But yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
I
yeah.
feel like I meandered a bit, so yeah, questions would be good to.
No, that was all good. Like I said, I didn't. I mean, my plan for this evening was just kind of just like let you talk and then just kind of jump in whenever I felt like I had a thing.
Good
Um,
enough.
because coming into this, like you were raising a lot of very interesting like points and topics and things to talk about, particularly when it comes to things like why certain churchy things, you know, can run the range from just not the most helpful thing that it could be all the way to actually doing more damage.
Yeah,
Like, in particular, that experience we had at man camp and like in the mash tent, which like for those who don't know, me and Matt used to go to Crossroads Church here in Cincinnati, and they have I think it's just once a year now. Um, I think the next one's probably coming up. They started this thing called Man Camp, which is pretty much exactly what it sounds like, a men's camping retreat thing, which at the time, like when it started, like almost 10 years ago, I think it was like 2015
yeah, it was
when that
amazing.
started. Yeah, it was like our favorite thing in the world. Like,
Still a lot of amazing things about it. Seeing that many dudes in one place, there to encourage
mhm,
each other as best they know how.
yeah,
And just to see like modern people in kind of a tribal environment um,
yeah,
was also very cool.
yeah. And this was like when I was at, like, for people who like heard me tell my story, like the point where my Christianity and like my faith had got to the point like where I had always like really wanted it to be, like where I would say like I was finally like seeing some shit, as far as like
Yeah,
things, whether you want to call it like miraculous or just like Holy Spirit stuff, and just some, at the time, I'm not saying it's not really cool stuff, but at the time, just definitely felt like this is like the coolest shit ever. Um,
still some cool stuff. Like
yeah,
like there were some things that happened that I wish people were studying to see what's really there about it. Um,
yeah,
and even if it is, I, there's a lot of placebo effect going on with it.
oh
And
yeah,
like, how do you turn placebo effect into kind of like a treatment program? like
huh.
like how do you take somebody's meaning that they have for life, which uh, or can run like the whole range of spiritual from like just this is the meaning I have for life all the way to like I don't know super conservative whatever. Um,
Yeah,
uh, how do you leverage meaning for healing? That would be cool because there was some healing stuff that happened. I don't know how long it lasted, but it usually lasted
yeah,
at least a while. Um, so that's super interesting.
Yeah, that's something I wish like Crossroads or like more churches really would do more of is like the follow up stuff. Because
Yeah, there was
people know
yeah.
Crossroads, they love like making their videos and like their interviews with people, but it's usually like right at the beginning of something. But like they don't really
Hmm.
have much in the way of let's check in on them a year later because like
Well, it often goes
I
badly, and that's why.
well, it's because like I still wish like I would love the opportunity for them to interview me now like years on from when like my family did our like ridiculously large like financial contribution during one
Oh
of
yeah.
their big campaigns. Like we get like I won't say it here. It was a stupid amount of money that we gave them. It was the whole thing. Like if you get like it, they kept saying it's not like health and wealth prosperity gospel, but it totally was. Like they kept saying like if you like you know honor God by giving us money, essentially, like He's gonna bless that for sure. Like because that's the kind of stuff that God reacts to and responds to, and
Well, I
like
think the way they got away from it being obviously like the health and wealth stuff is that it like they leaned more towards like God will bless your faith, like your faith will grow, and
well, that didn't work either.
but
So
that's also what is that confirmation bias? Like your faith will grow because otherwise you wasted a lot of money, and that might be
yeah,
too hard for people to wrestle with, and so like your faith has to improve.
yep.
Otherwise, that's the alternative. That's also a logical
Mhm.
fallacy, like sunk cost
Yeah,
fallacy.
sunk cost. Yep. Yeah, for me, like it was over like a 3 year period when they were running this big campaign thing. So and like at the beginning, I was like all about it, but then by the end, that was like shortly after the time I started deconstructing a bit. So I was like we still finished it out, but like I was not happy about it like already.
Yeah.
But
Some of that money went towards great stuff, like rescuing the girls from trafficking in India.
oh yeah, hmm
Um, put them into a Christian home. Um, way better than nothing. I'm not saying like,
hmm
well, if it's
yeah, and
Christian, don't even bother.
yeah, and
I'm
I've
not
been to
saying
those
that at
homes,
all.
and like I said, yeah, the transformation that's going on in those people's
Yeah,
lives is it's legit. Like it is real stuff now,
yeah.
but they're still teaching them some things that are like, really like. Because I remember when I went to visit there, like one of
I
our favorite songs to like to sing, like with like the
oh
girls who were rescued, like was like it was. I don't remember the name of the song, but it was all about how like God like sacrificed himself for us, but had the line like I didn't earn it, I don't deserve it, but you did it
no,
anyway,
this
kind of thing. It's like
uh,
'cause I remember even at the time, as much as I was really into it, like when we got to that line, I was like looking around at it, I'm like, don't they? Because it kind of feels
well,
like they do. you
at
know?
least they deserve being in a better environment. At least like
hmm
that whole like you can't get your mental health has a cap on it if you have the belief that you are like sinful beyond rescue and like forever dirty and for
hmm
fuck's sake, you don't take people who have been in sex slavery and teach them the original sin forever dirty shit. Like that's
Yeah.
fuck you. Like fuck them for doing that. Like they're it's better
Yeah.
so much better than where they were. And you're saying, but you can only get so much better. Like you can't get
Yeah.
super healthy because then you're lying to yourself and
Yeah. And all this goodness, it's not something that's already in you. It's got to be something that God, depending on your theology, either God has to give it to you or God just kind of has to overlook that you don't actually have it and kind of pretend you're that good or, whatever messed up
and
bullshit,
really really they were rescued because people decided they should be. That
hmm Yeah.
people decided other people are valuable and should not be hurt in that way. And
Right.
uh yeah, yeah. I
But
do
yeah,
kind
it's,
of I do have I think kind of renewed value in meaning, um, because I think so. Like there's the scientific explanation for things, and then there is meaning that those experiences have for us as individuals based on previous experiences. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
and that's important. Like it's important to find like a helpful meaning for going through a hard mental health time. Kind of redeem it in that way. Uh, but it needs to be
Mm-hmm.
based on what the best knowledge knows is good now and what the individual thinks is good. It needs to be a combination of that
Mm-hmm.
instead of a combination of what the individual thinks is good plus what people thought in the fucking Bronze Age thought was good. Like the best, just
Right.
what you think is good plus
Yeah.
just the best knowledge Bronze Age had to offer. Like,
Yeah. If even that, like it might not even been what they actually thought was good, but maybe like more what they thought they
right,
were
it's all
supposed to
based on what
think was
people in the
good.
past thought was
So
good.
it's like
Yeah,
an
what
extra
people in their
layer.
past thought was good.
Yeah.
Like why they thought they survived and
Mm-hmm.
thrived until now. But in the case of the Jewish people, there wasn't so much thriving going on, at least in the story.
Yeah.
A lot of
And
thriving now
yeah.
at other people's expense
Mm-hmm.
in some cases.
For real. But yeah. And just in case that sounded like we're not in any kind of like Illuminati conspiracy, like
No,
Jews running the world kind of thing. Just
some people are
it's
running the
not
world.
that, but somebody is, yeah. And they like explodey things. But yeah, when it comes to, because like one of the things you were talking to me about that I like really wanted to talk about here, was just, yeah, like what you've already been kind of talking about is like the difference between like what's actually good for a person and then like what, in our experience, the church, and this could be any religion, I'm sure, but what the church, like the Christian church, says, well, this is what's supposed to be good for you. And then like combine that with, one of my least favorite things about faith, is the whole aspect of how it's almost as if having strong faith means having a really strong ability to
Yeah.
deny reality. Or sometimes I like to refer to it as like self gaslighting, or as people are familiar with Aaron Ra. I saw him say on a video recently, it's basically rejecting your own eyewitness
Yeah.
testimony, which is ironic given how much most Christians like to put weight on the whole like eyewitness testimony thing when it comes to like the Bible being like historically reliable. But then we're also told, like in like Proverbs 3, like don't lean on your own understanding. Then I also asked me, okay, well, who gave me this understanding that I'm not supposed to use to follow this same person who gave it to me? But yeah, there's just so many, like what you're saying. Like I think it would be a great idea, but they would never actually do it, or at least not to the point where they would follow through with it enough for it to actually make a damn difference. But having people like, the Man Camp or like other church groups like to bring in an actual like independent, preferably secular, like psychologists, psychiatrists, whoever it is, come in, examine what they're doing, and actually give it like an honest evaluation.
We received zero training in the prayer thing. We were basically doing peer counseling, like religious peer counseling, and we received zero training from a counselor or a therapist. There were, if somebody was talking about self-harm, we did have certain people, there were certain MASH guys there who professionally had experience with, and we were supposed to flag leadership, and they would grab the guys and have them come talk to them, which was good. But it took a couple years for that to happen. And
yeah, but no, we got the only official training we got was from a dude who like hardcore believed in demons, and that they were doing
later
all
got
the stuff.
fired from Crossroads for saying women shouldn't be pastors and shouldn't be in church leadership. Um,
Yeah, he basically got fired for saying the kind of stuff I'm sure he
yes,
was always saying anyway, but it just got to the point where the church was getting enough of a public
yeah.
profile that they didn't
He
want
said it
to
in his personal
tarnish that.
capacity
So
on
he
the
became a lot.
Facebookers, and
Yeah.
but
So he was once like a hugely respected person at this church who was actually behind a
yeah,
lot of things going
hugely
on, but then
behind.
all of a sudden, like once they realized, oh,
Right.
he's a
The
liability,
yeah,
then they're like,
yeah,
all right,
yeah. Screw over
yeah.
the people for the sake of the mission. Yeah,
I mean, not that I'm trying no, not that I would normally come to the defense of this guy because I think there are plenty of other reasons they probably should have got rid of him, but I still have massive issues with him. But anyway,
I I think he means
yeah. So
well.
no real training from in any. Oh yeah,
I'm
it's.
no, I'm
I mean, but
exaggerating. I'm
that's
sure
what
he
I say.
means
Like,
well.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, lots of people who do
Well, that's
terrible
the truth. That's
things
the truth. Everybody
mean
is.
well.
That's important to
But
remember too about everybody. Everybody's the hero in their story, or the chief victim in their story, which is kind of the underdog
mm-hmm.
hero. Um,
Right, right.
and so when somebody's doing
Mm-hmm.
something, you're like, they're just a bad person. Probably not. And the people who are just bad people, not really bad. They just have their brains a little broken, and uh, maybe they need to live somewhere by
Yeah,
themselves so they can't hurt people. But most people, if you
yeah.
can try to figure out
Sometimes.
why they might be doing the thing you think is bad, why it might seem like a good thing to them, it helps you understand them, and
Mm-hmm.
then we have less of the explodey solutions.
Yeah, for real. But yeah, but when it comes to like how like I mean, we'll probably just kind of keep coming back to like Crossroads and like the main camp stuff specifically, just as our example. That's something like
Yeah,
the two of us were like very involved with. But I mean, like I said, you could apply this to all manner of things. This is just probably the illustration we'll be coming back to. But it's like because again, this is just part of the nature of faith, especially when it's faith in something that is not as much as some people who believe in it like might insist that God is like just so incredibly obvious and all the stuff in the Bible is so incredibly obviously true and it's shown itself over and over and over again to be true and all this stuff. It's like part of keeping like it takes effort to keep
yeah.
faith. That's why people say like I'm struggling to continue to believe. It's like that's why people say like you got to stay in church, you got to stay in the Word, you got to stay with other like Christian influences because it's one of those things like they say like because if you just go off on your own, you're going to lose it.
But that isn't what
It's like
that isn't
okay,
even what
well,
Jesus preached. Because what did he preach to the woman at the well, who he wasn't even really evangelizing to, because she left a pagan, the interaction of pagan. He wasn't even like, "Have you heard? I'm the guy you need to."
Mhm.
Well, I don't know. You just
Yeah, didn't even give her
no. He
like the
talked
sinner's
about
prayer or nothing. He
the
didn't give anyone
wellspring
the
of
sinner's
living
prayer.
water
But
that
yeah.
was in her, right? And if you have the well in you, why do you have
Mm.
to keep going back to the well at the church? So that's the difference even between like
Yeah.
Pollyanity or Christianity and what Jesus taught. Because Jesus taught like you have the well of living water inside you, and that's some version of that I think is true. Like
Yeah. And we'll get into this when we finally do eventually get to our episode on Jesus, which I swear we're going to try to do next week. But I I still take pretty much everything at least attributed to Jesus in the Bible. I still take all of that with like a gigantic grain of salt, knowing that by all accounts it seemed like he was like essentially the way I put it, just an apocalyptic cult leader, and he
yeah,
thought like the world was about to end. So like his instructions for people, like you kind of have to color it with that kind of lens as well. But yeah, but it's not saying that there's nothing like he still said some things that just like on their face
Yeah, but
Like, that's
it's
some good
also
stuff.
available in
But
like
like I said,
Hindu literature and the
yeah,
Quran, and like it's
yeah. Hmm. Yeah, because when it comes to Jesus, in case it wasn't obvious,
yeah.
I got baggage.
But
Yeah,
here's what sucks.
yeah.
Like as a literary figure, like Jesus as a vehicle for wisdom of the time, uh, pretty useful. Like as far as getting that out to people in a relatable way. Um, I don't think anybody
Hmm.
who wrote it was you. I think they were trying to portray kind of like a caricature of the real person. Um, there's no description of them. Uh, Male or female, we don't know. Jesus, I, the characters of Jesus is not treated like the apostles or the disciples. You know, what I mean, there's more of a
Hmm.
they're fleshed out a bit more than Jesus was in the story. No description of Jesus'
Yeah.
appearance at all. Yeah, it's really weird.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
if he's kind of an
Yeah.
avatar for information, that makes total sense because then you're trying to convey to
Yeah.
people that like what
That's
he
true.
teaches is more important than who he is. Except when you get to John and he's like,
Hmm.
"No one comes to the Father except through me." If that were true, damn critical for the other three to say the same thing. Kind of
Right.
the whole deal.
Yeah, 'cause that's something I think a lot of yeah, that's something I think a lot of people don't appreciate. It's like some people, like a lot of Christians will even at this point, like just take for granted. It's like, yeah, the different gospels, they say different things because they're taking different angles. But like some of the things like that, like, but they just assume that because one gospel says it, well, the others probably, if it's something like super important, the others
Yeah.
probably say something along those lines, or they just like it's all one book, but they don't appreciate like, okay, but these all this one book came out one book at a time. So like there were times when they people didn't have this one thing that Jesus said in the later gospel because all they had was Mark, which didn't even have any post resurrection appearances in its original state, for
Well,
what it's worth.
and I think
But
the ending is more profound too,
yeah,
because all right, so he teaches all this and then he just dies, right? And then the original Gospel of Mark just ends. That's way more powerful because just like a movie where it just kind of ends at like a certain point in the story, it's not a conclusion point,
yeah,
then you're left to question
yeah.
what everything meant that happened before.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least at the original ending, it does reference him, right? Because like the women do go to the tomb, and there's like the young man. I forget if in Mark if it's a young man or an angel, because yeah, it's different depending which gospel.
Okay.
But tells them, yeah, he's no longer here. He's gone ahead. But the story ends with the women leaving the tomb and telling no
Right.
one.
Right. That's one of those movie endings that makes you uncomfortable, and you're like, I didn't like how it ended.
Yeah. So that's what someone else who came to Mark later said, you know what, that ending sucks. I'm gonna write something that tells people to handle
Yeah.
snakes and drink poison. Like that'll spice it up. But anyway, um, but yeah, this
Wait.
whole idea
The big things
of
in Mark. I think
like
what
this
the woman at the well was that in Mark also. I know
I
in
honestly don't
Mark
remember.
there's the parable of the sower of the seeds and the different kinds of soil and all that. Um, and then Mark
Mhm.
has Jesus say, "If you don't understand this, you can't understand anything I teach." So like that sounds like the critical
Mhm.
thing to
Yeah.
kind of like process, not Jesus being the only way to the Father or heaven or whatever. Um, and there is some like really
Yeah.
cool information in there, like how to respond. So if you're trying to be kind to someone, and your kindness is received in one of these kind of ways, it it's cool to have like a cheat sheet. Now this isn't true because Jesus said it. Like it's true because someone noticed it was already happening. Like it's already a
Mhm.
truism, a
Right.
scientific reality of people interacting. I don't know if that's kind of neat, but having it be also a metaphor,
Yeah.
uh, it leaves room for additional meaning based on the individual.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, but yeah, unless you had anything else on that, like what I was saying about faith and like this idea of how it's like a struggle to keep believing, you have to put on all this effort into it because it's not as obvious as they like to say.
Yeah, if you are really
Um,
if somebody is really a
so
new
that
creation, uh, and you have that wellspring in you, then you shouldn't need the return to the indoctrination well. Um,
mhm. Yeah, and then plus like add in to that the aspect that I always like to come back to is like because this is why there's such an emphasis on like children's ministry, like literally like get them in while they're young, because we realize if we try to explain this shit to most people who are already like into adulthood and have critical thinking skills, it doesn't work
right.
as well. Um,
Yep.
but I mean, unless like I mean, obviously there's a lot of like people who convert in adulthood, but it's also a lot of times people who are in very vulnerable situations, going through very hard times, or
That was
just
something
needing
like when we
something.
were in the prayer group, the mash tent. Like, I
Yeah.
feel bad when you are leveraging somebody else's pain um, for their indoctrination. It's quite a bit grapey. It's a lot mind grapey. Um,
Mind grapey. Yep. Yep. A bit. But oh man, yeah, we can
yeah,
get more of that later. But
I'm
this
curling my
place,
lip at that.
this,
I I get angry at that, and I feel
yeah,
bad for having done it.
yeah. Well, I say I forgive you, but I don't know if that means anything.
Well,
Um,
it does, but like, yeah, I know what you mean.
but yeah. I mean, you didn't hurt me, so yeah, fuck it, I forgive you,
Yeah,
sure.
some people get
Um,
bothered by that. Like, it's not your forgiveness
but
to give. And it's like, well, but I'm saying I'm not holding that against you. That's cool. It is cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But anyway, but yeah, just the idea of because like this faith just always seems so tenuous. Like I said, this is why we try to get children in while they're young because, and I remember it'd be worded like all kinds of different ways, but basically the idea is like children or anyone really, they need to be kept in the church, like in the Bible, in the teachings and everything. Because if they just go out into the world, they're going to get deceived. Like they're going to like go off to college and hear about evolution and lose
Oh,
faith
and
and
the
like all this
gays.
stuff. I mean, I've
And the
seen
gays
God's Not
at
Dead.
the college.
That's how it happens.
We won't even use the other letters in the LGBTQ. We're just learning to deal with the gays right now. Never mind, that started like 30 or 40
Yeah,
years ago dealing with that, and they're just now getting comfortable with it.
yeah, yeah. The gays, TM. Um, uh, but yeah, because they realize that like if you remove the indoctrination, essentially, people are going to realize reality looks different than what they're telling me it looks like. But something that I like, so, but the thing is, if this God that you're worshiping is the creator of reality itself, then I mean, forget the Bible. Just reality should
Get to
be the
know
best
reality
scripture
better.
out
Yeah.
there. So the idea that someone being released out into the real
Out into
world
God's
that God
creation.
created is the easiest way for them to lose their
Well,
faith in
Tommy, you
God.
see,
Like,
it's a fallen world, right? And even the people who believe in evolution still also
right.
sometimes also believe in original sin and the fall, right? Because it's like real but metaphorical,
Yeah.
and
but it's they say it's fallen and so corrupt, but then also especially the creationist folks will tell you how so obviously
right,
wonderful and beautiful it is and
right.
how much it like shows like so what I want to ask someone like who believes in like the corrupting power of sin, like okay, exactly how corrupting was sin? What exactly did it corrupt? What did it not corrupt that is still evidence for how awesome God is? All that, like, because there's never a line. It's just always, well, anything we like is evidence for God. Anything we don't like
Right.
is
It's whatever
evidence
makes
for
you
the
feel
fallen
safe,
world.
because that's the whole
Done.
point.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
Right.
Um,
Right. Thanks for bringing me back to what I've been meaning to talk about for a
Okay,
good 15
good.
minutes here. That was a great segue. Because that's why they need to cling on to this stuff, because that's what makes them feel safe. And part of that is, even like we said, when it comes to, if you would have like an actual legit like psychologist come in and examine the practices that like Crossroads or any other church is doing in any of their ministries or their services or whatever, even if they would come with like scientifically backed evidence-based evidence, I guess, say like the things you are doing literally damage people and we can
Yeah.
show that to you, we can prove it that it happens, they'd be like, yeah, but it's against what the Bible says, meaning this against what we
Because
think
they're
the Bible
deceived,
says
or the
that
people
we should do.
weren't holy in the right way,
Mhm.
and there's always a way out.
Right. Yeah. And perfect example of this, something we overheard the last time we were at man camp. This is fun. Like we were both already atheists at this point, but I have a friend who leads a team that it's volunteers who cook food for the
I might
MASH team,
volunteer
the
with
prayer
that again
team.
this time.
And
Yeah,
that was
I
fun.
like being a monkey wrench that way. In the machine.
Yeah, but it was great, like going to man camp, but not having to actually
Oh, that's
do
so
the
great.
man camp stuff. Like just hang out and just camp for a few
Just
days and
talk
make
to some
food with
people
a bunch of
and
dudes.
get a little
yeah.
rowdy. Yeah, it was good.
Mhm. Yeah,
For
and
sure.
free beer.
And it's cheap beer,
great.
but it's not bad beer.
Yeah, I mean it's good as free. But I remember we overheard a conversation that a guy who I think
Yeah.
he was a what they call a trip captain. So like each like they divide up into groups. They're like 5 to 8 campers.
Kind of a
in group, and
military
they have
format.
like a leader. So they call the trip. Yeah, called the trip captain. So, and I guess this guy was over hanging out with some of the MASH guys, and we were overhearing a conversation. So, of course, like if anyone knows anything about like church, like men's retreats
Purity
or church
culture.
men's anything, like yeah, talking about jerking off and looking at porn, like that's like
It's right
constant
out.
conversation. So this, yeah, so this guy was talking about the conversation he was having like with guys around their campfire, and how one guy was talking about struggling
with masturbation.
Meaning,
It's like, sir, it's not difficult. Maybe I can walk you through it. Which part are you struggling with?
Have you tried using some lotion, maybe, or like, it's like, are you looking at like adult materials, or are you just like looking at an apple or something? Like that's not
struggling, like wrestling with it. Just like. I'm just
you're gonna hurt yourself that way,
like
man.
Falling into a wall or something, like it just literally wrestling with it. You just
like he doesn't know what to do with
also,
his hands.
I heard the Wilhelm scream from Star Wars.
Oh yeah, classic. But yeah, so this trip captain was like talking about this conversation he was having with this dudes, but like, oh, it was getting great. We were like getting real deep on some stuff, and this guy was, confessing all these things about. He didn't word it this way, but confessing for basically just being how he was created and feeling his natural like urges and doing something about it in a healthy, non-harmful way.
I mean, it just like needs to come out and mean it that way. I kind of meant it that way.
Yeah, I mean, literally. So, but then he starts like complaining about how, I guess in like the campsite over, there was this guy who was like a doctor, and I guess he overheard,
came in with like one of the coolest
doctor guy. Like,
actually.
Yeah, but this is like, yeah, like I said, this is when that was like totally warranted, and because he came over and talked. I don't remember if he said in the middle of their conversation or if he just pulled the strip captain guy over later, but he said, actually, it's actually healthy, like for men to ejaculate regularly. So if you're not sexually active, like, masturbation, like it's like something like at least like 3 to 5 times a week is like supposed to be actually healthy.
Cancer,
It can reduce your risk of, yeah, prostate cancer is a big thing, and like just other things. And he says it's actually like healthy to ejaculate. So if you're not like sexually active, yeah, just masturbating,
It's like good for mental
that's
health.
great.
Yeah.
And but then so now normally like or what should be the reaction to that is like, oh, great, thank you for that advice. Now I know how to inform the guy in my group how he can be healthier, possibly, you know, be lower risk of cancer. This is great. No, his reaction was, dude, are you serious? Can you please stop with that shit? Like, we don't need to be hearing that. I'm trying to walk my guy through like being free of this sort of thing. He doesn't need all your medical science information.
Right, because the
and all this
assumption
stuff.
is
I'm
that's
like,
garbage. Like they must not have studied it right, or
right.
they had a bias. The assumption is always that the other side has a bias and you don't.
Yeah. Or in like if all else fails, if you're at the point where you're forced to admit, okay, what this science dude or this doctor is saying is true, if this guy acts in a way that we consider sinful, he'll scientifically be healthier. But we believe that if he's faithful to God, God will take care of him
Well,
anyway.
but being spiritually healthy is better than being...
It's like, unless he doesn't, in which case God's just testing him. And hey, fallen world, what you gonna do? You see how this bullshit
like
works?
It all leads to the what are you gonna do at some point.
Not yourself, that's for sure.
I don't understand. I think maybe the logic is that if you jerk off, like it's gonna make you more lustful, but hasn't been my experience. It kind of makes you like immediately less lustful.
Oh yeah, I mean that's literally what it does. Yeah. Which, first of all, I love being able to like, for like in the past couple of years, like first time in my entire life, just like in a non-shameful way, be able to just say out in the open, yeah, I masturbate. It's a thing.
I didn't know you were gonna say
like
that.
And hey, ladies, guess. Well, I mean, we've been talking about it, so. Yeah, and ladies, if you know a dude, he probably does too.
I think the name of the
and ladies too, I'm sure.
I think the name of the YouTube channel I'm thinking of is "I'm Autistic Now What," something like that. And she has she's all into mental health and like sexual health and stuff. That's not really the focus of her channel, but like she has a sponsor. They sell toys for adults, and she had like a giveaway, and like one was yellow, one was purple, and they were like different functions, and they were for women. I guess dudes can use them too, but they were designed for women. And I was kind of shocked, but also like that's programming, because it's just a health thing, and I'm sure YouTube probably did something with downplaying those videos, push them down in results or something, but like the same thing. Like,
speaking of which, I did notice as we were talking about that, our viewer count went down. So.
Also, when we were talking earlier about mental health stuff, we lost our 2 viewers.
Which that's pretty much all we've been talking about, and that's what we literally said tonight was going to be about. So, like, come on.
I don't know. Maybe they're like, "Well, I'm not in the place to watch that. I'll watch it later." You know what I mean? Like I had a rough day.
That is perfectly legit.
It's kind of like not every day is a day to watch an action violent movie. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or us, apparently. Oh, but speaking of which, something I realized on our Facebook page the other day. So for some reason, you can follow a Facebook page, but then you can also like it. I don't know what the difference is. All I know is we have more people who follow our Facebook page than we have people who like it, which I'm like, what? I'm like, that's fair.
No, I like that. I like that. I'll take that over likes. Likes are like a one-off. Maybe that's why followers are like, I'm already here. Like, I'm like, I'll like it too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but that makes sense. Oh, people who followed it but don't like it. Like, yeah, that checks out. Um,
Oh,
but but
like
yeah, so
the S word for I'm trying to help with searches and stuff. The S word for
mhm,
offing yourself.
the 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 unal
Yeah,
yeah, the
that
unaliving. Yeah.
that gets a video buried in search results, and oh, thanks, stigmatize it more, assholes.
Yeah. Yeah, you
It's
think
not
like
profitable, Tommy.
we
That's why.
like whatever AI. Yeah, which I mean, it's one of those things like I mean, I guess it's hard to like speaking of YouTube, like it's kind of hard to, I guess, really complain too much about something that like is a completely free service that all these other people are putting in all the effort, like the people who actually run it.
Oh no,
But at the
they're
same
making
time,
crazy money off of people,
like,
like the data and the ad revenue.
yeah, but
Yeah,
oh yeah, I mean, I'm not saying they're not, but I'm just saying like, the people who own YouTube, technically can do whatever they want with it, and if we
right.
don't like it, we just don't use it. But it's like like when we were talking about like politics, it's like the reason that we're having to have all these like government programs to help out the poor, but you have all these people saying like, well, it's supposed to be the job of like whether they say it's the churches or just private charity or whatever. It's like when we don't think the government should be forcing us to. Like the way I like to put it is like, okay, well, first of all, like from the private sector, it's just not happening, at least not enough. If it was happening enough, then yeah, we wouldn't need these government programs. That'd be great.
Yep.
But so if you're one of these people who hates the idea of people being forced to pay more in taxes so other people can eat or have mental health services in some cases
Yep.
or whatever, it's like, okay, is the government the asshole for forcing you to pay for it, or are you the asshole for not being willing to pay for this stuff
Yeah.
without being forced? That's essentially what it came down to for me. 'Cause like I said, I used to be like hardcore, like libertarian, then anarchist, because I was all in like, oh, we shouldn't be forced to do anything. But no, like I said, I still at my core still agree with a lot of those principles, but just the practical reality of it is it's not happening without forcing people. And I'd much rather force people to pay a little extra, especially, at the risk of sounding like some super woke liberal, the
Hmm.
top, the 1%, the ones who really afford it. And like, I'm much more comfortable making them slightly uncomfortable than
Right.
making a lot of people like die
And
homeless on the
here's the
street.
thing: at any given point, you remember how Rush Limbaugh, when we used to listen to him, he was always like, "It's not a zero sum game. Like you can create wealth." But here's the thing: that's true. But here's what's also true: it is a zero. Yeah,
It's also called
it is
inflation.
also a
Yeah.
zero sum game because at any given point, there is a limited amount of money of wealth available, right? Like you can do things to create wealth. That's
Yeah.
also how inflation happens a little bit. Um, but at any given point, like the money is
But yeah.
somewhere. So
So,
if there are people who don't have the money to feed
mhm.
themselves, um, like that money, it's because that money is somewhere else. It's
Yeah. But here's the thing. So I'd be like, speaking with someone like him, obviously you can't speak with him anymore because
yeah,
he
you need some
passed
very
away a
special
few
people
years
for
ago.
that.
But yeah, like I'll find like that witch of Vendor from the Book of Samuel or
Indoor.
wherever that was. Because hey, it says in the Bible that getting a witch to conjure up a dead person works. So if the Bible
Speaking of
says it,
witches,
it must be
I think
true.
I'm gonna go to
Um,
that Milford like witch market thing. Um,
oh yeah,
just because like I don't know. I
yep.
also might see if there is somebody who I used to work with who came out as trans into Wicca. I don't know if they still are, but like that could be like a cool environment to hang out with them. Just because
Mm, yeah. Yeah, we might post about that, like, if we're heading out there for people to like, "Hey, maybe come meet
we're
up."
not like into
But
it exactly.
but
It's
back
just
but
super
back
interesting, I'm sure.
yeah. Yeah, again, just feeling like, "Hey, now it's something I feel free to do, and I'm not gonna be, like, leave there with a demon attached to me or something like I would think before." But yeah, but back to the whole if I could speak to Rush Limbaugh or just someone like him and say, "Okay, well, wealth's not a zero-sum game, like, you can created. It's like, okay, well, all those people who have like more than they know what to do with, tell that to them, because that means that they can give all this
You can
away,
just
and then
make
they
more.
can just get more for themselves. They're the ones they're the ones already creating all the wealth. So let them give it to the people who, for whatever reason,
Or give
can't right
it
now.
to us.
And it's like, if it's not a zero sum game, then don't work. Then they shouldn't. If it's not just a like set pie, then they shouldn't worry about having to give up too much of their piece, because they can just get more. It's like, be consistent with it if you're gonna go with
If
that.
I didn't have an aunt who had a lot more money than me, she basically bought our house from the bank, and we make payments to her, and she gave us like I think a year without payments before we had to start making payments back to her. She knew that we were, hard up, and but yeah, like we wouldn't be able to keep our house.
Yeah, I've had lots of similar help from family and stuff like houses and other things.
Not
too.
everybody has that, and
right.
Speaking of feelings of safety, like losing home security and food security, awful. I mean, you can't function. Like you'll have mental health problems, because that's the bare minimum that we seek as animals and as people.
Right.
And there's nobody should like in our country. Fuck, like there was one aid package that went to Ukraine that would have eliminated food insecurity in the United States, and we've sent several aid packages. I think we do. I think it's. Some people disagree on the left, but I think it's a humane thing to do, to send money for Ukraine to be able to defend itself. I also think if we have the money to send that many times over to another country, but then we're like expanding like food assistance in the United States, well, we don't have the money for that. Where the fuck did you get the money for the bombs and shit? Like,
well, fine. If you still want to support Ukraine, then just take it from the money we're sending to Israel or whatever.
I'm gonna make a Facebook post, and because I'm just like ready to write off everybody from like the old prayer group who's doesn't want to deal with me. Just want to say, like, what if the war in Gaza isn't the end times holy war you think it is? What if it's just a genocide? What do you want to err on the side? What do you want to err on the side of, holy war or genocide? Like,
well, a lot of these people, they were already okay with Israel, at least according to the story, like committing genocide in the Old Testament. So what's wrong with them doing it? No,
God's people were already in the area. You know who Israel was like the current country was started by? White Jews from Europe. Like, who came down and were all kinds of racist to the brownish people who lived there, and the Arab Jews who had been living there for fucking ever. Like, they got treated as second-class citizens because they're Arabs and tend to have darker skin. It's God's people, in quotes, were still there. They never left. Some of them went to Europe, but like this notion that like all of them left and to Europe and they all came back. No, that was just like one branch. That was just the Ashkenazis. There was another branch, whose name I can't remember, who stayed in the area and were living peacefully. All the religions were living peacefully for the most part, and then it was
it's a whole thing.
It's basically colonizers co-opting a religious movement, like they do.
It's kind of our jam as a species, apparently. But back to this whole.
I think we lost the viewer when you were like, I masturbate, and they're like, whoa, I was fine with it as an abstract concept, but then as soon as you came on board with that, I gotta watch my terminology.
Well, hey, like,
I'm saying things I don't mean to say.
Well, I was going to say like, well, hey, but you being like all open and honest about
Yeah,
like your deal, like you inspired me, Matt. So
I got a
that's.
text message from. Oh no, it's just an alert for our parental control stuff.
I was going to say like, is it Aaron watching? Like, tell Tommy to stop talking about jerking off.
By the way, I still haven't watched you
Sorry,
guys talking
Aaron.
because I wanted to watch it with her, and that hasn't happened yet.
Oh, yeah, life, man. But yeah, it was really good. She had a lot of really cool stuff to say. So I recommend if you haven't watched it, definitely go back. That was only like the first like
Yeah,
half ish of the episode. Then I went on to like watch some like Frank Turek and Father Casey
or at least your bowels all
like
over them.
apologetic video. So yeah, so I'm actually planning on like posting like just my interview with Aaron just as its
Yeah,
own separate video, like on the Facebook page and on YouTube. So if people just want to watch that part and go for it, obviously, like I'd appreciate it if people watch the rest of like me just like venting all my
did
bile.
she talk about her
Uh,
employment at all?
um, I don't think so. At
Okay,
least if she did, it wasn't
I'm just
much.
curious.
Because it's hard for me to remember because like we were having like conversations like because she was also like we were like talking like this was while you were
Yeah,
still in the hospital. So like I was talking on the phone with her like the night before, like getting updates and then talking about because it was literally like a spur of the moment. She would like literally just called me to give me updates on you and like we were talking about stuff and then it's because she was talking about how like your families who were still Christian were kind of dealing with this and she was talking about how she's like I just want to come out as like non-Christian. She's like I kind of just want to come on your show and do that or something like that. So that literally happened like probably like 12 hours
yeah.
before we
She
actually
told
did
her
it.
dad
Like
while I was in the
so.
hospital too that she isn't, and he still like is a big volunteer at Crossroads, and he works at the car repair ministry thing where they give away cars to people who are working poor, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think I'm going to
Yeah.
volunteer.
Which
Yeah,
very, very cool.
I
Yeah,
think I'm going to
very cool
volunteer
thing to
there
do.
too.
Yeah. Yeah, you
Um,
volunteered. Yeah.
it's going to confuse the
Mm-hmm.
hell out of him when I'm like, yeah, I'm good not being a Christian. I have no interest. And like, just the end of it. But yeah, she said he got
Mm-hmm.
all teary eyed, and
But yeah.
I was like, yeah, he probably just heard you say maybe I'm going to hell.
Yeah. No, then he can always just fall back on what like all the Christians who tell me like when I ask him, "Do you think I'm going to hell?" Like, well, I can't say.
Yeah,
It's not for me to judge. It's but really think about that. Like, this is something I love to bring up is just think you think that's like such a nice thing to say, but think about the implications of that one that like you can't tell someone for sure whether or not they're going to hell. And like it's just not you like it's like when people tell me, well, I'm not trying to judge you. It's like I'm not asking you to judge me. Like you tell me what it takes for me to go to
yeah.
heaven, which you're supposed to know if you're going to like evangelize and stuff. You say, okay, you got to do this, or you got to believe this, you got to pray this, and whatever. And I'm like, okay, I do none of that. And then they're like, well, I can't say. You literally just told me, motherfucker. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's.
anyway.
I think humanity became more aware, more conscious. It's like we became conscious.
Yeah.
Maybe this is how just like all life forms that get to our wherever we are in consciousness and intelligence. You start to realize how vulnerable you are, or just how much you don't know. And once you realize how much you don't know, it can be really scary, and kind of in itself be an existential threat to your mental health. And so it's got to be explained in a way that makes you feel
Mm,
safe. Um, and
right.
safety is important. Um, and in a way that like religion is kind of the story of your people, like whatever the dominant one is for your area. Uh, so there's some value in being in kind of understanding it, because then you kind of understand how your culture got to where it is. At the same time, like it's a
Mm-hmm.
map.
Yeah,
It's
good.
not the territory, and I love that metaphor.
Right. Yes. Yeah. For people who didn't see our conversation with Aaron Tomlinson 2 weeks ago, go back and watch that too. That was fantastic. We talked about that whole map is not the territory concept and perception and all that. Yeah. Great conversation. Great dude. Um,
Oh, and he's
but
the guy
yeah,
who,
it's
who
just.
made it okay for me to
Oh
go
yeah.
to them
Yeah. Talk about that.
to go to the ER because um, I yeah, I feel like
It
he
was
and I
well
kind of
timed.
see the world in similar ways, and so hearing someone else say, "Yeah, I was
Mm-hmm.
wrecked at one point and I needed help, and it was good." And seeing him now and healthy, and yeah. Also, if
Mm-hmm.
anybody's wondering, like I've never on here, I've never looked like I'm having problems or acted like I'm having problems. It's kind of because it was nice to put that aside for a minute, or a few hours, and
Mm.
be the part of me that wasn't having problems or compensates for it and
Yeah.
is silly. Some sometimes are yeah. So that wasn't always how I was. It was just more that this was like a good a small support group kind of thing. Um,
Mm.
yeah, but I had some like really down times when I wasn't on here. And for like a week, I couldn't do very much sensory wise. It was really rough. Turns out, too much THC can wreck your mental health. If you have anxiety, if you're
Mm.
prone to anxiety and depression, um, it can make it worse. So I don't know. Heads up for people with that. Not everybody,
Mm.
because
Yeah.
it is a natural substance, so
Yeah.
it doesn't do the same thing for everyone. Yep.
Yeah. Stay safe out there, kids. I'm sure this is fine.
I I did decide I don't want.
Um,
I want to be out of the habit of like drinking or smoking weed or using weed. We're never gonna get monetized. If we wanted to, like
eh.
doing it when I'm feeling down is not a good idea.
Mm.
Uh,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
but I've had some like I would call them like
Yeah.
real spiritual moments though after I smoked, and things that just make sense of the world for me, kind of like deeper meaning and all that. Uh, so I think it really depends on how you use cannabis. Like, are you using it as an escape, or is it kind of like a route for you to address some healing things? Um, I think that can make a big difference. Also, listen to your doctor.
Oh yeah.
Take their
For sure.
take their
Yes.
information into consideration.
Yeah. Not your church
Right,
captain
right.
or pastor
People who have more knowledge in their heads
or
about the real.
yeah. Yes. Because like, while you are still real, take advice from people who understand reality. Um,
Pornography can be an addiction. Just to, I'm going to throw that in the
yes.
past
Mm-hmm.
when you're talking about that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're definitely like it can be addiction. Also, there's like I've learned there's such a thing as
Oh,
like ethical
yeah.
porn, meaning like okay, like everyone involved actually wants to be
Pornhub
involved,
polices
kind of
themselves
thing.
because they were forced to by the government because I don't know election year bullshit one time. But it is good that they started policing themselves. The problem is the same company that owns that also owns several other major pornography sites, and they don't police themselves on there.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of stuff
Yeah.
available out there that was not consensual. Um, so, and there's also indie porn, which I heard about at some point in the past, and
Mm.
that's all basically employee owned stuff. Um, like all the production companies are basically run by the participants in it, uh, which is
Yeah.
super ethical.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and again, sorry if this is TMI for everyone, but I was always more into like the amateur stuff anyway, where you could tell it was just like a couple doing it themselves. It's like on their phone or whatever. It's
Yeah,
like, okay.
that seems. Also, you kind of you can just kind of tell like everybody was on board for this.
Yeah. And also just again, like for the way my brain works, I can just tell like this is more realistic. Like this isn't
We got our viewer back.
my expectations in an unrealistic place.
If that's
Hey,
the same
just
person
in time
that
for us to be
left,
talking about what kind of porn I like.
they're gonna think that like this is what we've been talking about the whole time, but it's not actually. We should probably get back to a different topic.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. So, but going back to, so did you have any like things like in mind specifically about like the way that like the church, whether or not it's specifically like the Crossroads, Man Camp, Mash Tent stuff, like what are some like ways that we like handled stuff that were very like demonstrably like this is the opposite of what you should be doing? Did you have any like examples in mind you wanted to kind of discuss or?
So, remember the signs of religious trauma that I posted? I'm gonna look it up right now.
Yeah.
I was looking at that, and I realized how many of those things. Hold on. That would probably be easier because I can't find it in Google just from pulling it up quickly.
All right. You talking about what you posted
yeah, where it was
on
like the list
humanity
of
page?
symptoms. Where instead of being sentences, it was just a list.
Let's see here. Okay, here it is. Yeah, let's see if I can share that here real quick. All right. All right, can you see that?
I'm gonna have to get stupid close to my screen.
Here, let's see if I can
Here,
zoom in.
Yeah, what's the
that almost
that's
helped.
the sentence one. Where's the other one? I think it was after. I think I posted it after that one. There we go.
Okay.
Difficulty making decisions, depression, low self-esteem, anxiety, guilt and shame, sexual dysfunction, difficulty building strong relationships, grief, loneliness, like perfectionism, all this stuff that we would have seen this as like signs of the possible demonic activity and would have done the prayer and the spiritual warfare stuff against it. Thing is, like, we could have been making it worse because, like, depending on what impact what we were doing had on the person, like, it could have created more of this. And if they were already a Christian, like, part of their problems could have been based on their perspective of what was happening. And so,
right.
It's like it might like it seems like people have to get deeper and deeper into the spiritual warfare stuff to get more and more benefit out of it, which is the same thing that you do with drugs, because the drug helps you, but the rest of the time that it's not helping you, it's making it worse, and so then you need more of it, which is like a great way to run a church business where you need more people coming back. If you're really about like preventative health care or preventative spiritual care, then the goal is to run yourself out of business, or at least run yourself into like a lower profit kind of situation, to where you're just maintaining the community and maintaining people's health.
Yeah.
So, and So the main reason I haven't been allowed to participate in the MASH thing, they never really asked if I was a Christian at any point anymore. It was seeing LGBTQ people as I was going to say just healthy, but there are unhealthy people in any community. But just seeing them like not inherently sinful, not inherently broken because of that, and being affirming.
Right. Yeah, because we're not approaching them with the, well, yours clear what you're doing, even though you seem fine to us, but our Bible thing says that you're actually not fine. So we need to tell you that you're
like the mental
fine.
health security at stake and the physical health at stake. People in the queer community not being fully accepting could be passively helping them want to off themselves, want to be unalive. Unforgivable. It feels unforgivable to me. Like if you're not gonna like change your mind on that,
because it is,
and like you're like, well, it's like spiritually the best thing, and God knows what's best, and it's like your God might want to kill people. Like, you okay with that? Like,
if this is what it is, yeah.
I'd rather go to hell
see, like if
for
people are
guys.
confronted with the truth of God.
Honestly.
Yep. No, but you see, Matt, like if you're sharing the truth of God with people, but it's ending up harming them, well, that's their fault.
Demonic activity, and they're a victim to it. That's not what the evidence says, though.
Yeah. So all right. Well, I mean, on that note, like for our audience, it's kind of like ebbed and flowed, or like waxed and waned, but mostly waned apparently throughout the evening. For those still sticking around with us, I am just going to go and throw the link out in the chat. So if people watching us on the Facebook or the YouTube, I mean, if this sounds like a conversation you'd want to join in on, if you want to hear me talk more about what kind of porn I like or whatever you were hanging around for, that's
Well, what's his nuts?
Or the actual topic at hand.
It's probably what's his nuts is probably not in the crowd because what Wesley.
Wesley was it?
Wesley, whatever the second. He'd be in the chat. Yeah. So I don't think he's here. Yeah. Although I think he'd be interesting to talk to if we could get him away from just like the automatic proselytizing that happens.
Yeah, like part of me would be curious, like what he has to say about this topic, but or maybe he can be like a good like what's the word? An example test case, visual aid.
I really thought he was a bot, like a Russian bot, because there's like 4 different Facebook profiles with the same picture, and it looked kind of like a royalty-free photo of somebody.
Yeah. I mean, if not, that was like some impressive deep fake going on.
Yeah, for real.
So, yeah. I mean, you can't. I mean, you saw that guy. You can, like, what was that? Was that on our? I think that was on our the Problem of Evil episode. We also had Vince on. We were talking with him. That was. That was something.
We didn't have the stamina that evening for that.
Yeah, I went back and watched that, and I was like just going back and just watching like how I was interacting with him and how I just kind of like started giving him some shit and just like the way I cut him off, and like going back and watch that, I was like, did I actually do that? Like that didn't seem like me.
Yeah, you just weren't having it.
I guess I was just Yeah, I guess I was just in a mood, and all this like for one of the like a rare point in my life, it seemed like I actually knew what to do in a difficult social situation, which like never, especially when it involves being confrontational. Like I'm usually like terrible at that stuff, but I guess I was in the zone or something.
I did want to say something.
But
I'll talk to you
hmm,
off recording. There was someone who I used to hang out with in the prayer group thing. And this has to do with your thing of like, what do we do that was bad for mental health? I think
hmm,
just assuming that something could be primarily a spiritual problem that was mental health gave people the out
hmm,
to avoid going for professional help. Um, because there was somebody I
yeah,
heard indirectly they sent something to this one group, and then that group sent out information, forwarded the email out. And just having been in the mental facility and hearing people talk, some people talk who were having specific acute issues. Reading this person's email uh, sounds like something like schizophrenia might be starting. Uh,
hmm,
and them saying that people keep trying to say it's a mental health problem and mistaking stress levels for mental health problems. Um, so seeing it as like just like stress and a spiritual problem, and this problem that this person probably needs to be in a facility and getting medication help, because these this kind of problem doesn't get better on its own and only gets worse. And praying about it, well, doesn't have a good track record. Maybe it'll get
yeah,
better after prayer.
yeah. Or yeah, or it might have like
Right.
a very short term effect, but
But
like,
so does
for
dopamine.
people who may or may not be watching at this point, right? But people who may or may not be watching anymore at this point, but if you are still kind of leaning in that like direction of like, you still believe in that sort of thing, it's like, because Matt, tell me if you've heard this before, where someone like goes to get prayer for something, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I felt delivered, but then they got to but then they
Yeah.
got to keep going back.
Or it doesn't stick.
And how often do they need to keep going back? Like, speaking of like me, like enjoying like the porns and the whatnot, do you have any idea how many times I'd been prayed over for this and had things cast off of me so it
Yeah.
would no longer be a
Away from
problem?
you, whatever the
Well,
language.
my search history says, well, my search history says
Yeah.
otherwise, fuckers. So,
Uh,
and here's what I am free of now is the shame
yep.
about it.
No,
But I
shame
got
is
rid of that shit
toxic.
myself. So,
To
yeah.
Mash's credit, um, somebody once said in a meeting with us that uh, somebody from a chief volunteer with Crossroads, not really on
Mm-hmm.
staff, but might as well have been, said something like sometimes shame can be good, like it can be a motivator. Uh, and then in that same meeting, I think you were there for this. Uh, MASH leadership for that camp uh, spoke next and said, "We will not be shaming people." and I was like, "Go team!" Because like
Yeah.
the whole tough love thing, like shame can be good, and I saw
Yeah.
so you can either come in the easy way or the hard way at camp. Like there was a route through the woods and a route on the road, and the road was the easy way, and basically, if a guy
Yeah.
looked like he didn't have health needs that required the easy way, um, some of the lead volunteers
Yeah, I
would
was here
hassle
for
them
this. Yeah.
about taking the easy way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think remember when they first introduced it, they said like I think trip captains they were literally given like any of your guys who you could tell could have gone in the hard way but didn't. Like they literally had like little like they were like fake but like plastic like baby pacifiers they were supposed to give the guy.
Here's some people have such strong
And
anxiety that taking
yeah.
the hard way would give them a panic attack. Um, and there are people with
Yeah.
heart conditions that can't strain themselves. There are some people who are just
Hmm.
they're overweight and they're like very uncomfortable with it, and they don't want to put
Yeah.
themselves through that.
Or like yeah, or for some people, because this is also supposed to be one of the points of man camp is like to get away from what your usual day to day is. So if you're someone who like you're in perfect health, like everything, but like your day to day life is just
Yeah,
stressful as fuck, and you're just like, you know what? I want to take it easy for a weekend. That's what I
and
need.
and
Then yeah, no shame in that, or there
and there were
shouldn't be
some
shame in
groups
that.
that the trip captain said, uh, we're going to stick together. If there's somebody who can't do this, like who can't take the hard way in, none of us will. We will stick together. That's the most important thing, is for us to be a community.
Hmm.
And so that happens sometimes, and their trip captains got hell. Uh, and there were and if somebody didn't want to
Actually,
take the hard way or they couldn't, um, there was usually at least one other guy or two guys that would walk the easy route with them, so they wouldn't have to do it alone. Um, and
mhm.
like that's awesome too. And sometimes like, hey, yeah, people got hassled for not looking like they needed to do it and
Yeah,
all that.
yeah. Yeah, I actually remember. Okay, so when the year that happened, that was actually the year I was a trip captain, and I remember like I was sitting next to a friend of mine who was also a trip captain, and yeah, because this was one of the meetings where I had the trip captains and all the mash like together for something. And I remember like as soon as the guy mentioned the whole like baby pacifier thing, like the guy, like my friend who was sitting next to me, he just like turned like he just had this like shocked look on his face. He turned to me and goes, "Fuck." And like because we were both and like this is not cool, like so we both like said yeah we're not doing this now. Like for my group
Yeah,
it didn't end up being a thing. Like we were all everyone was fine, we all took like the hard way in, and wasn't even an issue. But I remember it's like even at that point I was like before I knew like how my group was going to be or whatever, I was like I am not doing that. Like that's
yep,
yeah.
not cool, not kind.
So
Um,
yeah.
I think if everybody says, I'm just showing tough love, check yourself because you might just be an asshole.
Yeah, that's usually what that's an excuse for. Like that's code for I want to be an asshole but feel
Well, and
good
some
about it.
people, that's like the only way they can be kind is to
Which
like make it put a jab with it, and like normally those people are kind of easy to read
yeah,
because they are being kind and a little jerky about it. But then if somebody's like the whole thing of if your justice has to happen at the expense of love, then maybe you have an unbalanced view if you're a Christian. Like
yeah, maybe,
love
maybe,
is
yeah,
just. That's the thing. If you're like, well, sometimes you can't be loving because there has to be justice. It's like, well, then maybe your justice isn't kind or loving, or maybe your love isn't just.
yeah, or maybe yeah, rethink what you think of justice, or at the end of the day, like if need be, fuck justice.
Yeah, like like
I don't know.
jerking people out of a mental health facility because the justice system has bigger needs than you.
Like yes, like yeah, when the system is more concerned about making sure we properly punish someone as opposed to making sure they actually get what they need to maybe make it
Yeah,
so they don't do the thing we're wanting to punish them for ever again. Like what a
punishment
concept.
doesn't prevent
But
it doesn't prevent crime. It doesn't even prevent people from coming back to prison.
No, it just makes the people doing the punishment feel better, or make them think
Yeah,
they feel better
like
about
treatment
it.
programs have a higher rate of
Yeah.
success and fewer repeat offenses for that require prison time. Um, it costs more up front, but in the long run, it costs less. But it also, if you want to like punish people or hurt people because they hurt people, then uh, that doesn't meet your revenge needs.
Yeah. And this is something like it like just occurred to me now. Like, and this isn't something that like we've done consciously, but like with my kids, like both me, like and their mom, like now that I think about it, it's like I mean they're both teenagers now, so I mean, and obviously different people with different kids, it's gonna vary. But even like before they were teenagers, it's like we never really like what I would call like punish them very often, like at all.
Yeah,
Like we definitely have to correct a lot of things with them still, but it's like I don't we don't really punish them like we
yeah,
talk to them about it. And if anyone like out there is like is of that mindset, it's like, oh, this is what happens when you don't spank your kids anymore. You're not tough with them. They grow up to be spoiled brats. Anyone who like knows my kids and you want to tell me that they're not like two of the most amazing people you've ever met,
yep,
and like I said, and I'm perfectly comfortable giving like full credit
yeah,
to their mom as well. Like like I said, this has been both of us. This is just like I said, it's not like a conscious thing. Like I don't single, I want to punish them, but I'm not going to. Like it's just, I think both of us, just the way we relate to them, it just naturally doesn't
yeah.
really
We
happen
don't.
much. But
We
yeah,
When I was a more like conservative evangelical Christian, because it wasn't just when I was a Christian. It was like when I was more into like follow the leader. Like the people in charge think this is good, so it must be that kind of thing. Um, we did punish Owen, and we did spank him when he was little, but it was
hmm,
I never liked it.
yeah,
Never felt good, uh, and
yeah,
that didn't last very long at all, and we didn't do it very much. And like sometimes we'll have consequences for actions, uh, but that's really rare too. Because the thing is, like kids want to blend well with their family, and they want things to go smoothly, and they want people to be
hmm,
happy, and they want to care about people and care
yeah,
for them. And so when you've got that in your favor, it really is just talking, and when the kids are old enough, explaining why this is the way we do things. And um,
hmm, yeah,
yeah, now
exactly,
if kids have acute mental health challenges, there can need to be more restrictions and more consequences, because especially when they're testing boundaries and they need a firm boundary in order to feel safe. Uh, that's different, but then also that's a great time to get professional help. Like, how do we do this well? That kind of thing.
right, right, yeah. Like I said, I mean, my kids are one thing, and like I said, how we deal with them is how we deal with them. I understand for whatever reason, like other parents' situation may be different where you do have to do things differently. But and it's also one of those things like as much as I talk about like my kids and how awesome they are, it's like I feel like I can't like take full credit for them because like part of it is like I really don't understand how they
Hmm.
turned out as well as they did. Like it actually like
Yeah, I feel the
legit
same way.
blows my mind. But yeah, so maybe my parents feel that way. Who knows?
I think
Um,
good parents are.
at least with a
I
couple,
think
at
good
least with a
parents are
couple of
blown away
us.
with their kids. Just like they're awesome people, you know.
Yeah.
The humility to think your kids are amazing for reasons you don't understand.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think one attitude that I've tried to adopt like the whole time as a parent is my job as a parent is not to make like better little
Hmm.
versions of myself. It's to recognize that they're their own person and try to help them be like the
Yep.
best version of themselves.
Yep. I think it's the best way to not be toxic with your kids, to avoid shame and guilt and all that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was fortunate, like I said, like I have good parents. Like I think I turned out all right. Like, I mean, I can definitely tell there's some ways, like particularly the no longer being a Christian part, maybe some other things that like you can tell like this I'm maybe not exactly what they wanted in a kid, but like I never really felt like a bunch of pressure that like as much as they maybe like would have preferred me to be a certain way, it's like they never like tried to
Hmm.
force me to be a certain way or anything. They always like,
Yeah.
yeah. So thanks, mom and dad. I mean, I know for damn sure you're not watching, but
That would come up in conversation for sure.
actually, with my parents, it probably wouldn't. We'd like the way we were all, we just ignore that shit.
I think you would know. I think they would like start saying like you if you said something around them that reminded them of something that you said, like even slightly in the podcast.
Oh, you mean like what? I mean like what kind of
No,
porn I like to
just
watch? They,
I don't know.
I want to see them
Like
bring
if
that up in
you're
conversation. Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
if McKenna's wearing shorts or something that like they think are too short and like you don't have a problem with it or whatever, and they listen to this podcast, they might be like, and they might get like, I think they might say something or make a comment unrelated. Like I think you'd be able to tell that they had watched.
Which but speaking of like so I have a teenage daughter, and she dresses I guess like a normal teenage girl these days. I mean, I wouldn't say she wears anything like super immodest, but I mean, I'll say she wears things that I'm surprised my parents have
Hmm,
not said anything about.
interesting.
Like I remember like when she was picking out her dress for homecoming last year. Like I said, I was fine with it, but it was like one of those like off the shoulder kind of things, and like apparently like my mom actually like helped her like pick it out. I'm like, really? Like, I guess I don't know if they've just chilled out a bit or if
Well,
they,
that
I don't
that could
know.
be some vicarious
Either way,
living a little
yeah,
bit. Like I can't do this, but you can. Like
that could be. Yeah, yeah, that could be true. But yeah,
some like women's liberation after the fact kind of thing.
yeah, that is one thing I've kind of like because like my mom, like she's a good in her own way, like a good submissive Baptist woman, but you can tell like her personality is like very much like she has a big personality, like in a good way. Like she's just a very like outgoing, gregarious person, but she still kind of sees herself as like the more
Hmm.
like submissive wife, good obedient woman thing. But it's like you can kind of tell like that's not who you really are. That's just kind of who you kind of feel like you need to be. So yeah, maybe this is just one of those instances of that like coming
Yeah,
out. I
as
don't know,
much people were who they were
but
instead of who they think they need to be based on things.
yeah, yeah. Because that's the other thing. Like my dad, like on the other hand, is like he's a very much maybe much more like me, or I guess I'm more like him. I guess would be the way. Like like his personality is not necessarily in a bad way, but like just much more passive. And but again, being the good Baptist man is like I'm in charge. But yeah, but it feels like he like hates like being in charge or like being the decision maker with stuff. So, but yeah. Anyway, maybe psychoanalyzing our parents should be another episode, or maybe it shouldn't.
My
But
mom has not
yeah,
mentioned. I pretty sure she knows I'm doing the podcast again. You know, since we rebooted it, she's not
yeah,
said word one
hmm,
about it. I haven't really said anything to her about it either. Uh,
yeah, yeah. I know I mentioned it like in front of my dad once because I was like talking to one of my brothers. I think it was like when we were having the episode with Tiffany that we
yeah,
did a while back. I was mentioning to my older brother, who was also a fan of her band, like back in the days. I was like, "Oh, you never guessed who we're getting on our show," and it was like, but but it was kind of weird because that was like probably the only time I'd actually mentioned it to my brother as well, because I just knew like this isn't something he's actually
Yeah.
gonna want to listen to. But I just thought, hey, he might think it's cool that we got Tiffany from Rackets and Drapes on, and he said something like, "Oh yeah, I know," but it was kind of like, "Oh yeah, that's cool. We don't need to talk about this."
So he's so does that mean he watches occasionally, or he at least keeps up on the?
No, I think he probably just saw. Like, I doubt he watches. I mean, if you're out there, man, hey Ed, but no, I think like he's still on Facebook
He
occasionally.
sees the
Like he
screen
doesn't like
grabs and
post
stuff.
at all, but I think he still like follows. Yeah, yeah. Or, but that's the other thing. I like with like my mom. She's on Facebook. My dad isn't. I think we my people who know my dad, which is probably none of you, um, may find this funny. Is like my older brother Ed made my dad promise that he had to wait at least a year until after he retired before he got any kind of social media. But and he's been retired for over a year now. He still doesn't have anything, and I don't really know if that's a good idea for him at this point. He's
Yeah.
like, I think he's about to turn 70. He's
Oh
about to turn
wow.
75. I think. Yeah,
I think my
but
dad would have been
yeah. Anyway,
71.
hmm. Yeah, my parents like they waited a bit.
I was an
Yeah,
accident.
because I think when I was born,
They intended to wait longer.
oh, now let's see. I think my dad was he was like 30. He was like 32 or
Oh
33
wow.
when I was born. So yeah, I mean he was 30 when they
Hmm.
were married.
How much younger is your mom?
So yeah, like two and
Oh, okay.
like almost 2 years younger, or almost 3 years,
So
almost 3 years
yeah, so
younger.
she was older
Yeah,
when she got married too.
yeah, yeah. But yeah. Anyway, so I guess this, as much as I thought this was going to be like an evening of like Matt sharing his story and experience, his parents become like, let's talk about Tommy's parents and his porn habit. Like, there's a combo I didn't see coming.
Womp womp.
That was even worse than I intended it to be. Anyway, and I didn't even intend it. Didn't even intend it. Anyway, so so thanks for sticking with us. Those of you who are still out there watching, I see you. Um, was there anything else on the actual like topic before we should like stop this before I say too much about things I should not talk about?
Anytime someone makes fun of someone else's like mental health problem, like I think I think people in general need to work on destigmatizing mental health challenges. Um, like, be bothered when you're
Yes.
watching a movie or a show and the villain is mentally unwell. Uh, like, it's not okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or like mental illness is essentially like used
Yeah,
as a punchline or
or it's
joke
like
or
the
yeah.
I don't know how to describe it. We were watching something like in the hospital. One of the characters, there was a villain in the story. It was like some like Lifetime equivalent movie. It was on a different network, but something where like the woman's the victim and the hero in the story, like every Lifetime movie seems to be.
Mm.
Um, and one of the villains in the story was clearly not mentally well, and they like played up the mental illness, and it was like kind of theatrical and like a little cartoonish, and
Mm.
yeah, like everybody be
Mm.
bothered by that kind of stuff, and um,
Yeah.
Understand that
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
somebody else's mental health problems, um, you don't have to interact with the mental health problem in order to interact with the person. So if there's discomfort with that, like relate to them as a person. Try to see through
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
because a lot of mental health stuff comes from fight or flight responses that got stuck, uh, and so
Ooh.
try to see through to the reason for the fight or flight response, and speak to that. Like, uh, yeah, like you can be kind to someone and
Yeah.
you're not endorsing their choices just by being kind to them, or you're not helping them stay mentally unwell by being kind to them. Um, Especially people with mental health challenges need to see that the world is worth being a part of, because social withdrawal is a big part
Mm.
of all that, and that's not
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah.
Um, yep, I don't know. Be a safe person for the people.
Indeed. And also, if that's you, like, get help and don't be ashamed of needing help. Because this is like, again, one of the things I appreciated so much about like Matt, like whether it's like, tonight being so open about sharing about it, or it's like I said, as soon as he got home, he's like posting about it on Facebook and on our like the humanity page. Um, yeah, just remove the stigma on it, and because it's like we've said, like getting help for mental illness is just the same as like any other kind of illness. Like I view Matt like going to like the mental hospital is like no different than when I went to the
Hmm.
hospital when I had cancer. It's I mean, it's mental health. It's literally the health of your brain. Your brain is an organ just like
Yeah,
any other organ. So like that's one of the things that like pisses me off when people talk about like mental illness and like people dealing with shit and they're like, "Oh, it's just all in your head." It's like, "Well, your head is
or you
still a
need to
very
man up,
real
and
place."
you're being weak and all that shit.
Yeah,
It's like
fuck that.
fucker. If
Like
I could
and
have like
being like
strong armed myself into a better mental health place, it already would have happened. You dumb shit.
yeah, like when I had cancer, if anyone would have told me to like to man up, like I would have just said like, "Oh, fuck all the way off." But that's the other thing, and it's actually like quite the opposite. Like because in my like experience, like people told me like, "Oh, you're being a real man," because I was like going to the hospital to get help and like being open about it. But it's like with mental health, it's like we have a complete opposite
Yeah.
like fucked up
Oh,
perspective on it, which then if there is a hell,
yeah,
that can fuck all the way off to
and
hell.
professionals
So
in the
yeah.
mental health industry will treat you the same as anybody else. They're not going to treat you like you're like weirdly fragile, or uh, they're going to treat you how you need to be treated, and
Mhm.
that's what they're there for.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so and thank you. Like, I mean, not that you need me to thank you for getting the help. Like, and not just for yourself,
Yeah,
but I mean, selfishly, I'm your friend. I like having you around and being
yeah,
in a good place. Um, and but also, like I said, I like appreciate the hell out of like you being like open about it and wanting to talk about it here tonight. And yeah, because hopefully, like this is my hope anyway, that anyone out there who may be struggling with something, like just like you, like we're kind of inspired or emboldened or whatever we call it by our conversation with Aaron a couple weeks ago, which
yeah.
great timing on that front. But so yeah, hopefully, like what you share, can maybe be helpful to someone else. Also, just like last week, hopefully, like what Erin shared about like her journey and what she's going through and what she wanted to like kind of go public with. Like, hope that helps. Like, because really, that's why we're doing the show in the first place.
Yeah.
At least a big part of it. Like, and that's the reason. Like, as people ask me why I'm always so vocal about you know leaving the faith and all that. It's like it's because like I've had people reach out to me and tell me like what you're doing is helping. Like I literally had someone say to me, I don't know how completely like literal and serious this was, but basically saying like, "Oh, you're out there saving lives, man. I'm like, holy shit! Like, I mean, I'm like sharing memes and like talking shit about like church and stuff. But hey, if that's what helps you out,
Yeah.
I'm glad to do it.
I do want to
But
say I've had some I've
yeah,
had a couple rough days or parts of days since I got out of the hospital. But
no, for sure.
knowing that I have tools to help it be better, and uh, that it can be better, like that's really helpful. Um, I
Hmm.
got my medication increased while I was there, so that's, I'm sure, going to be helpful. It takes a little bit of time for it to kick in, because it's not like an anti-anxiety
Yeah.
medicine. Those tend to um, work more quickly. But
Hmm. Yeah. But what I was going to say, like, as much as I like appreciate you like being open and sharing both like on your page and the humanity page, like I also like was super appreciative of like the
yeah,
reaction that it got. Like there was like a lot of positive response to it. So thank
yeah,
you everyone out there who like reacted, commented or whatever, like
still
on
not
like
that
what Matt
many
was
from the
sharing,
old
and
Mash
yeah,
crowd,
those
but it lets me know which people are worth being in contact with
mm,
still.
yep. I mean, if nothing else, see this is why this happened, Matt. This
No, this is
was
just a useful thing that happened after it. Like,
yeah. No, but see, but this is like
yep,
what like we've talked about at least a few times before. I think it's something we talked about with Aaron, or I talked about with Aaron. Maybe it's like, or like my story from, um, going to like Taste of Cincinnati, wearing this like literally like this satanic black metal shirt, and it led to like some cool conversations where in any other context, and it would have been like, oh, this is such a God thing. The way things like totally worked out. It's like, so apparently, Matt, I guess the takeaway from this is God gave you like mental illness and needed to go to the hospitals, and then you make
yeah,
someone else feel better. And fuck you and your feelings. But hey,
yeah.
some it
Everybody's a
helps someone
means to
else,
an
right?
end,
So yep. A
because God
means to
is
God's
love.
end. But we're told he doesn't like yeah, it's a means to God's end, but we're told he doesn't like butt stuff. I'm getting mixed signals. So
that reminded me of a Sir
uh,
Sick video that recently came out, where he was like, he
yes.
said blah blah blah, but I'm a huge asshole, or
I saw that.
or something like that, and it showed this cartoony picture of him in his cartoon helmet, just like surrounded by like butthole tissue.
Yeah. Like he was literally just
Yeah.
like the face of an
Oh,
anus.
speaking of
Yeah.
faces of anus,
It was fantastic.
I do love the description of Donald Trump's face as cat anus, because he goes like this
Yeah.
when
It
does
fit.
that like weird pucker thing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, was there anything else you wanted to speaking of assholes, was there anything else you wanted to touch on?
Dirty. No,
Well, what are you talking about?
no. I think that was. I think I'm good. Owen and I finished watching the original Star Wars trilogy last night. And he was so wired from it. I think he was
Ooh,
up till like
nice.
3 a.m. Um, and
Uh, mm,
all right, all right. This goes along with like maybe this is a good ending to a mental health thing. So Erin, my
all right,
wife,
cool.
she follows like some like neurodivergent like Facebook groups, um, and somebody posted something.
Hmm.
It was like a video clip, um, as a good example of them talking to their kids, them talking to their also ADHD children about life, and it's like from some Western thing, and it's a guy going, he goes, well, we don't know. We just kind of figured, fuck it. and, and then the other guy goes, fuck it.
Yeah.
And so, why does Owen go to bed at 3 a.m.? Because it's better for everyone if we just give him his melatonin and want him to take it soon. And usually he does, but then there's the nights where like it'd be bad for our relationship if we like forced him to take it in front of us. And what that means is every now and then he's up till 3 a.m.
Mhm.
Most nights he goes to bed relatively soon after we give him his medicine. And we've
Yeah.
watched a couple episodes of The Mandalorian, and
Yeah.
it's good stuff. I'm glad he likes it. And he was also, I hadn't seen it in a long time, and watching Return of the Jedi last night. I think it's my favorite one out of all of them. And well, out of the first three, and I was kind of seeing it kind of for the first time again because I didn't remember certain parts. It was cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Also, I was a little under the influence of green things, so
yeah, I could tell by the text I got from you like early this morning,
Yeah.
late last night.
Yeah, good times.
Yep. All right. Well, yeah. This was fun. Yeah. Thanks again, like for like being so open and being such an inspiration.
Gross.
I know that's kind of how I felt too. Like that's something like people still like tell me every now and then. Like, oh, speaking of which, I will brag on this. This as of this Saturday, I will be officially 3 years in remission,
Fantastic.
which I'm super excited about. So yeah, fuck you, stage 4 melanoma survival rate.
Yeah.
I was about to say you're going down, but no, you're actually going up. But yeah.
No, that's true. And medicine's only going to get better, especially with AI coming on board for all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No thanks to someone.
Yep. That could be that's a partial topic for an AI.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But so are you still want to? So do we still want to do Jesus next week? Is that
sure?
You're in the mood for?
I think I'll see if I can get. I feel like I need to get a Jesus action figure or something.
Yeah, there's still people like. Again, speaking of our episode, a couple. Yeah, which episode was that? What was that? Yeah, the problem of evil, maybe. Episode where you looked up like an inflatable Jesus online. Like, so someone still wants to get us that so I can have it as a prop. Otherwise, I do have another, like, I already have something planned as a prop. You know, like, I mean, my candle's been, you know, doing its job, and, you know, our old buddy Robbie P, you know, holding it down back there over my right shoulder. Figure. But
new in package. for like, was it $20?
All right, so you heard it, folks. Like, next week we're finally talking about Jesus. So if anyone wants to get us some kind of prop, you know, Jesus related.
Oh man, there's some good stuff. They're not cheap though. I think they're discontinued, you know, because people didn't buy them.
Come on, man! It's a son of God. Like that. Those don't happen every day. I
want to get like a Stretch Armstrong Jesus.
Yeah. Stretch Armstrong Jesus. We're gonna need a bigger cross. I don't know. That was hilarious in my mind. Sorry.
Yeah. There's also a Jesus soccer guy, but I think that's because his name is Jesus. G.I. Jesus, that could be. For $55. No fucking way. And it's total. It's like straight on like Kenner kind of build. You know, like the original Star Wars stuff.
Nice.
Man, I think I might. Wow. I might sit outside and Finger puppet Jesus could also be cool. Be-
Ooh. He could like be on the show, like, "Hey, everybody." Yeah. So yeah, get on it, folks. If you wanted any sort of like Jesus related paraphernalia next week, as we're talking about the dude, send some our way. All right. But other than that, any other parting words, Matt? Other than the
uh,
usual benediction, but
I really want there to
anything
be
else
like
you feel you want?
like an inflatable Jesus punching thing. I think that would be therapeutic.
Mm. Yeah, I feel you.
No, just to all the peeps, may your things and stuff be forever with your people.
Yep. All right, and thanks again, Matt, for sharing tonight. We'll be back again next week, same time. Finally, Matt and Tommy do Jesus. And no, it's not on Pornhub or
It's not
OnlyFans.
JC Hub.
It's going to be right here, free for the people. We're going to do the Jesus with the things for the people and the stuff. All right. Yeah, that was a thing. All right, bye.